Greetings, Mavericks and new viewers. Tonight, direct and live from the Maverick News Network World Studios. This is Maverick News with Rick Walker.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Maverick News Channel. Great to have everybody here. Just checking my audio, and it looks like we're good tonight. So much to share with you, and so much of concern, and so much of it revolving around, PR wars, information warfare, spin. We're going to tell you about this FBI investigation into potential aggro terrorism. 2 Chinese nationals detained as a result of that, but it has been nearly a year in having this information revealed to the public. The investigation began last July, 11 months ago. And in that same vein, we'll have an update on what's going on out at that Universal Ostrich Research Facility in British Columbia, where the protesters and the farm owners have launched their own PR campaign to minimize information damage. And as a result of them doing that, we have new revelations, new information that has come to light as a result of that tonight, confirming what we've been telling you, that those birds were indeed injected with COVID antigens as part of COVID research. So we'll dig into that. And I think that David Dixon, who was on the program the other night, who phoned during our call-in portion, will hopefully be joining us live on the program tonight by video to explore some of these new pieces of information that have surfaced. So we've got that, plus confirmation of the number, like the extent of the damage from the massive drone strikes against Russian airfields by Ukraine. And there's a lot of spin around all that. We have fallout from the big, beautiful bill from the Trump administration, and then all this infighting within the Republican ranks as a result of that. And Biden's old press secretary has jumped ship. She's left the Democrats and has a new tell-all book that she is pitching. We'll tell you a little bit about that tonight, too. And then at the end of the night, I hope that John Rimby from Alberta will join us, because he told us this. Well, I won't give you my review of his joke, but he gave us a joke last night, which was pretty funny. And I've come up with my own response to that. And we're going to close the show off with that tonight, I hope. So I'm looking forward to that call from John Rimby. And you're going to want to wait till the end of the program to hear what I came up with overnight. So stay with me. Lots to share with you tonight. Lots to unpack. And it should be another barn burner of an episode. We'll be right back.
Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are Maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals, defenders of individual rights and freedoms, credible, trusted, grounded in reality. Maverick News. Defending free speech. Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching.
We're back, and let's start digging into tonight's top news stories. So I guess where we should probably start is this Aggro Terrorism investigation. Well, potential Aggro Terrorism, Agri-terrorism. The FBI has uncovered a potential Aggro Terrorism threat at Detroit Metropolitan Airport. Well, they didn't just do it. It was like a year ago, almost, where 2 Chinese nationals were charged with smuggling a dangerous fungus into the United States. The arrests not even announced, though, until yesterday. And this has raised alarms over national security and the safety of America's food supply. According to the U.S. Department of Justice, Yongqing Jian, 33, and Zuyang Liu, I don't know if I'm pronouncing those names correctly. I'm doing my best. 34 years old and 33 years old, respectively, both citizens of the People's Republic of China, were charged with conspiracy, smuggling, making false statements, and visa fraud. The fungus, identified as Fusarium graminearum, is classified as a potential agroterrorism weapon in scientific literature. The pathogen causes head blight, a devastating disease that affects wheat, barley, corn, and rice, leading potentially to billions of dollars in global agricultural losses annually. Its toxins can also cause vomiting, liver damage, and reproductive issues in humans and livestock. So as I say, the investigation began on July 27th of 2024, last year, when U.S. Customs and Border Protection officers intercepted Liu at Detroit's airport. During a secondary screening, agents found 4 plastic baggies containing reddish plant material hidden in crumpled tissues in his backpack. Liu initially claimed he was visiting his girlfriend, Jian, and had no work materials, but later admitted the samples were strains of Fusarium graminearum intended for research at a University of Michigan laboratory, where Jian worked as a postdoctoral fellow, and Liu was denied entry and returned to China while Jian was arrested by the FBI. Now, this has, of course, made international headlines, but it is of particular interest and concern in the Michigan area, and has been highlighted on local broadcasts, local news programs, including this one on WXYZ. I'll just give you a little taste of that.
Now to 2 Chinese nationals with ties to the University of Michigan facing federal charges, accused of smuggling a dangerous biological agent through Detroit Metro Airport.
33-year-old Yin Qing Jian and her boyfriend Ziyang Liu are charged with conspiracy, smuggling, making false statements to investigators, and visa fraud.
Here's why this could have been such a big deal. Federal prosecutors calling the pathogen a potential agroterrorism weapon that could be used for targeting crops like wheat, barley, corn, and rice.
7 News Detroit reporter Faraz Javed was in federal court and has more.
On Tuesday, 33-year-old Yongqing Jian made her initial appearance at the federal courthouse in downtown Detroit, right behind me, in front of Magistrate Judge Kimberly Altman. Jian, a postdoc research fellow at the University of Michigan from China, has been charged with smuggling a biological pathogen that has been described as a potential agricultural terrorism weapon.
That is kind of scary. You kind of just don't understand why something like this would happen.
U of M students Camilla Webb and Tanvi Dega are trying to wrap their heads around how it all happened. This 25-page federal complaint outlines how the alleged crime transpired at Detroit Metro Airport on July 27, 2024. U.S. Customs and Border Protection officers detained Jian's 34-year-old boyfriend, Zuyang Liu, also a Chinese national, for carrying Fusarium graminearum, a plant-based pathogen. The complaint describes this fungus as capable of producing mycotoxins that adversely affects crops, humans, and animals, causing billions of dollars in economic losses globally each year. During the investigation, Leo initially denied possessing the pathogen, but later admitted to bringing it into the country for research at the University of Michigan, where Jian worked in the lab.
It's kind of shocking that our resources are being used for something like this.
A joint investigation by the FBI and CBP reviewed electronic communications between Leo and Jian. Evidence showed discussions on shipping biological materials and research activities at the lab prior to Leo's arrival. Additionally, electronic records indicate Jian's involvement in previous smuggling activities.
I would have never expected something like that to happen at our school.
Investigators also found evidence linking Jian to the Chinese Communist Party and receiving funding for her postdoctoral work from a foundation largely supported by the Chinese government. Now, Jian is being held in federal custody until Thursday, June 5th. That's when Magistrate Judge Altman will decide on Jian's detention or bond at the next hearing. Meanwhile, Jian's boyfriend, Leo, was denied entry into the U.S. and was sent back to China on the day of the incident. From downtown, I'm Faraz Javed, 7 News Detroit.
So, not entirely clear why it took so long for all of this to come to the surface so that we now are hearing about it in the public and why it's taken so long to get this thing into court, etc. Possibly because it's international in scope, but we will learn more over time with regard to all this. FBI Director Kash Patel has warned that the Chinese Communist Party may be targeting U.S. food supplies. He has stated, quote, "This case is a sobering reminder that the CCP is working to infiltrate American institutions." The University of Michigan condemned the actions and denied receiving Chinese government funding for the accused researchers' work, pledging full cooperation with law enforcement. Okay, so we're digging into that and also digging into this ostrich farm story, which we will also highlight for you during the course of tonight's broadcast. So stay with me. There's a lot more ground to cover tonight.
Maverick News. Fighting for freedom.
All right. So I guess what we should do first, before we get into the ostrich stuff, because it's going to take a considerable amount of time, I think, tonight, unexpectedly, but I do want to talk a little bit about these tariffs. Trump doubling the tariffs on steel and aluminum from 25% to 50%. He posted this the other day, and we have reaction now from the Canadian government to these on again, off again, up again, down again tariffs, and now they're up again. And Trump posted this. This is after his visit to, I believe, Pittsburgh, Steel Town. This was several days ago.
I'm thrilled to be back in this beautiful Commonwealth at the legendary Mon Valley Works urban plant with the proud Pennsylvania patriots who are the heart and soul of U.S. Steel. A strong steel industry is not just a matter of dignity or prosperity and pride. It's above all a matter of national security. We're here today to celebrate a blockbuster agreement that will ensure this storied American company stays an American company. It will stay an American company. The golden age of America has only just begun, and together we are going to make America great again, greater than ever before. With the help of patriots like you, we're going to produce our own metal, unleash our own energy, secure our own future, build our country, control our destiny, and we are once again going to put Pennsylvania steel into the backbone of America like never before.
So that's his PR spin. And then today we had scrums happening inside Parliament where Prime Minister Carney was asked about the tariffs and came across with this.
Mais pas plus de répondre. And in English, the latest tariffs on steel and aluminum are unjustified. They're illegal. They're bad for American workers, bad for American industry, and of course for Canadian industry as well. We have counter tariffs in a gross amount before remissions on over 90 billion of U.S. imports. We've acted strong. Those are in place. We will take some time, not much, some time, because we are in intensive discussions right now with the Americans on the trading relationship. Those discussions are progressing. I would note that the American action is a global action. It's not one targeted at Canada. So we will take some time, but not more, before we respond.
And I'll let this roll.
Bien, vous avez vu la déclaration du premier ministre. Notre première priorité, c'est de se battre contre ces tarifs-là. Vous savez, les choses changent vite dans le monde des tarifs. Alors, notre priorité, c'est clairement d'être là pour se battre contre ces tarifs-là, protéger notre industrie, protéger les travailleurs. C'est ce qu'on fait, c'est ce qu'on va continuer de faire.
Voyez-vous un taco? Est-ce que vous pensez qu'il va y avoir un taco là?
Ben, moi, comme je dis, notre priorité, c'est vraiment de se battre pour voir ces tarifs-là éliminés. Effectivement, donc c'est ce qu'on fait. Là, vous avez vu, mon collègue, le ministre Leblanc, était à Washington récemment. Donc, on va continuer de faire ça, d'être là pour les travailleurs. Vous savez, l'industrie de l'aluminium, l'industrie de l'acier, des industries fondamentales à l'avenir, à la prospérité économique du Canada. Donc, I would just say, listen, as the Prime Minister said yesterday, our priority is to fight against these tariffs. You know, things change fast in the tariff world, so we're all hands on deck on that. Minister Leblanc was in Washington yesterday. We're working hard and we're fighting against these tariffs, but also to protect our workers in our industry. You know, the steel and aluminum industry is key to Canada's prosperity, and we're going to be there fighting and protecting our workers.
St. Catharines has got to be worried about these tariffs. Can you tell me what the mood will likely be in the fab plants in St. Catharines today?
Well, absolutely. It's something we heard at the doors. It's in any manufacturing town across this country. There's a GM plant there. There's auto manufacturing plants throughout Niagara. It's something that's concerning. General Motors is an anchor industry in the Niagara region, and Canadians and residents of St. Catharines voted for this party and to stand up to Donald Trump, and I believe Prime Minister Carney will.
If you were asked, should we be retaliating dollar for dollar? Should we be hitting back with tariffs today? What would be your advice to PM and to Mr. LeBlanc?
Well, I look forward to hearing what the response is in caucus right now. You know, the Prime Minister has promised to stand up for Canadian jobs and Canadian industry. I'm not privy to the diplomatic back and forth, but I know him and Minister LeBlanc will stand up for those jobs, and retaliatory tariffs are a big part of that.
What about financial aid? I know the money that's being collected from the retaliatory tariffs. How fast should that flow, and should that go to companies, workers? How do you think that should work?
Well, fundamentally, we need to be protecting workers and standing up for those jobs. That's something that the Prime Minister talked about during the election campaign, and again, we'll see what's said inside the room. So, thank you so much. Take care.
You got some steel
here, a little bit more.
Woods, steel makers, steel plants.
Yep.
You got some advice about retaliatory tariffs or anything that the PM may want to do in response to what Trump is doing?
I think as long as we use the revenues from the retaliatory tariffs to really help businesses on the ground, that's the key. I think we've got the right things in place so far, and we'll see what we do in the future, but I'm not exactly sure how we're going to, make sure to respond in kind, but I think that's what we need to do. Thank you.
All right. So just more chaos, more turmoil. This is just a roller coaster ride every day. Now that Trump is back in office, unbelievable, really. But the roller coaster ride isn't happening just here. It's also happening on the other side of the border, or even within the Republican Party. And it's not just because of the tariffs. And you've got court challenges. You've seen the court push back on the blanket tariffs, and then giving Trump this temporary reprieve on that, but he's, this is turning into a legal battle because that's the only counterweight to his power as the president at this point, because he's ruling with the tip of a Sharpie and executive orders. And apparently, according to the courts, it looks like he's overstepping his authority. But we'll see how that plays out in court. Not only that, he's got this one big, beautiful bill that he's trying to jam through, which just, I don't think I've ever seen anything quite like it, because that bill involves so much. It's not singular and focus. It has a variety of objectives, and it just deals with a bunch of things all at once. It's like he's in a real rush to get these things jammed through. And that's why it's like all condensed in this single bill. But even within the Republican Party itself, you're getting pushback, controversy. And Elon Musk came out and began to criticize this the other day. I'll show you his. Yeah, let me get this up for you. Okay. So, yeah, Elon Musk. And then I have, he's saying that it's an abomination, especially after he's gone to work, he says, to try and cut spending, eliminate waste. And he's saying that this is actually going to create more waste. Oh, I'll show you. I just have to get it up for you. Here we go. So this was just from yesterday, I believe. I'm losing track of my days because we're so busy here. But he says, I'm sorry, but I just can't stand it anymore. So he actually came out and posted this. He says, this massive, outrageous, pork-filled congressional spending bill is a disgusting abomination. Shame on those who voted for it. You know you did wrong. You know it. But he doesn't stop there. And then he lists some stats here to show how the United States is basically going bankrupt. He says, in November next year, we fire all politicians who betrayed the American people. Okay, let me just get this straight. The GOP are out there spending millions on luxury hotels in Ukraine, not voting on any Doge cuts, spending 60% of their time on vacation, not codifying executive orders. Is this the major reform the American people voted for? So he's turned out to be, well, he's out of the White House now and is now turned on the administration and this one big, beautiful bill. Now, today, we've seen Speaker Johnson respond to that in an apparent attempt at some weird diplomacy, because they've got damage control. We'll get to the ostrich story in just a moment, because I see Mr. Dixon is waiting for us in the back room now. So don't go away, because we're going to have some new information to share with you on that front. But here's Speaker Johnson
sort of
in damage control mode.
Threats against Republicans who voted for the big, beautiful bill. I mean, he spent $290 million in the 2024 election. How much of a threat is this to keeping the majority in 2024?
Look, let me just address the Elon controversy and tell you that I consider Elon a friend. He's obviously brilliant. I just told you we credit him with all the big changes with Doge and everything else. It's curious to me what happened this week. And full disclosure, Elon and I had a great conversation, about a half-hour-long talk on Monday this week. Monday morning, and we talked about the big beautiful bill, because I think he was trying to make a joke a couple of days earlier. It can't be big and beautiful, and I started the conversation. Oh yes, it can, my friend. It's very beautiful. So we talked about all the record level of savings. My friends, no government in the history of mankind has ever cut $1.6 trillion in a piece of legislation. We're doing that here.
Except that if you listen to Steve Bannon, he'll tell you that this hasn't happened at all, that there really has been no savings. And I think Mr. Bannon, who has been at odds with Elon Musk on many fronts, is not sad to see him leave the White House. Here's Bannon criticizing Musk. And again, another crack forming in the in the unity within the Trump administration.
There are no Doge cuts. Let me repeat this. And this is not USAID. Those are programmatic things. I'm talking about waste fraud. Where's the fraud in Medicaid? Which is where is it? They haven't showed up with any. Has anybody been turned over to DOJ for fraud? The problem with Musk, and I said this from the beginning, he gave false hope to this political class who doesn't want to cut anything. The reason, if the big beautiful bill's got all these problems and it has some issues, he drove it because he promised $1 trillion, ladies and gentlemen, $1 trillion that got him off the hook. It's time for everybody to grow up. Run around, show me where it is. The rescission next week is $9 billion, and $2 billion, folks, is PBS and NPR. Give me a break. Didn't need Doge for that. Been fighting for that one forever. There's $7 billion in there supposedly of, fraud. On a $7 trillion, he committed to the President of the United States $1 trillion.
And I'm pretty sure we're nowhere near that. Everything I've seen indicates that the savings are much, much less than that, if any at all. But it's been very disruptive. And speaking of disruptive, everything going on in BC at that Universal Ostrich Research Facility, that's been pretty disruptive to people living in the community out there in Edgewood, British Columbia. They have, you could almost call it warfare. It's like literally a fair. And there's some sort of a strange information war going on out there. And when I mean fair, I mean FAIR. It's like a circus, literally, with Jim Kerr and his bubble bus. He's like, quite honestly, kind of like always has the facade of a clown on and blowing bubbles out of his bus. I don't know if you've ever seen that, but there is this whole element to it, and bouncy castles, and it's like a fair. And it is an information war, and it's getting weirder by the day. And joining us now is former police officer and investigator, David Dixon. Hello, sir.
Hi,
welcome back to the program tonight. Great to have you here. Thank you for joining us.
You're welcome. I actually was taking some time off today. It's been a busy few days health-wise and dealing with challenges at the care home, and then this new statement came out from the farm. I'd written to the University of BC and some MPs asking for some clarification on the statements of Dr. Stephen Pelik, and I'd heard nothing back. Mm-hmm. And then we get this. It's on a web page. Most people, when they read it,
I'll tell you what, I'll bring this up so we can kind of walk people through a little bit, because we're starting fresh here for some people. So can you, while I queue up this image from their website, can you just give people who maybe are hearing about this for the first time, just the Reader's Digest version, the backstory, so they understand what this story is about?
So we've got anything between 400 and 500 ostriches that have been identified as having got bird flu sometime last year. 2 of them have been tested for H5N1. At least 69 have died. That number may be much higher because there seem to be discrepancies between how many they originally had and how many they now have. And watching the videos, it's hard to gauge how many they have got. I've been speaking with the villagers, and they've got concerns. But basically, because they were identified as having bird flu from an anonymous tip, which wasn't anonymous, CFIA come in with their standard operating procedure, as they've done with hundreds of farms already in Canada, and the UK does the same with this stamping out policy. You can agree with it or not, but the practical options of testing every single bird when they've just culled 14 million. But that's one way to bankrupt a country and never actually stop anything because of the time it would take to do it. So, it's not perfect, but I don't know another option. But in this case, the farm fought back and said, we're not going to accept this. They didn't fight back for farmers. They didn't fight back because they are farmers. They fought back because they're researchers. And their research since 2020, they spent, since the 90s, culling these birds themselves for profit as commodities, selling the meat, oil, making them into dog food and various other things. But then suddenly in 2020, they decided to become full-blown researchers. And there's been statements made that haven't been verifiable that they were working with Dr. Sakamoto out of Kyoto University, who's actually been experimenting with ostriches for decades, injecting them with avian flu, Ebola, MERS, Zika virus, just about every nasty pathogen you can think of, hopefully in proper level 4. If you're dealing with Ebola, level 4 biolabs. So they said they were working with him, but their appeal to stop the cull focused only on the avian flu. And what's bizarre is they've mentioned Sakamoto. The expert has mentioned Sakamoto. They said in public statements they've been injecting these birds on the farm with COVID antigens, which is basically the spike protein, the infectious part of the virus, during the pandemic, starting in 2020. Nobody seems to want to talk about that part of it. They just want to say, save the ostriches. Well, what are we saving them for? So they can continue to experiment on them with deadly pathogens in an open-air biolab with no security and no restrictions that are required in Canada? I don't know what we're saving them for. But today, they issued a statement because they're trying to fight back on people saying, we don't believe that you've been doing this. We believe that, there are people accusing them of scamming everybody, and there is a history in the courts of a lot of failed businesses and failed investments. So it's understandable people would say that. But as a retired police officer and a forensic investigator, I can't look at this as the least case scenario. I have to look at the worst case scenario when lives are at risk. And they're stating, and the expert witness stated a few days ago in a live interview with Rebel News, that yes, not only have they been injecting them with COVID and other viruses, but he's been taking the eggs off site to actually test them. Well, there's all sorts of requirements around transporting biohazards. The farm's got pictures of local MPs or MLAs with eggs back at the actual the council offices. Where are the restrictions in moving this? And in 2020 and to this date, the requirement in Canada is anybody handling for research the COVID spike proteins or anything like that, they've been identified as beyond a regular coronavirus. They are a level 3 biohazard and must be treated as such. Now we've got Sakamoto is allegedly in the email they provided, which said on I put a post up too fast. I wrote June 4th, but it's actually there in the screenshot. As of January 4th, while these ostriches were still dying, because in the court documents it says the 69 birds died from December to January 15th. He wrote on January 4th in support of the farm that his faculty members and students had been traveling, I assume from Japan, to the farm in BC, an open-air farm where at that time they were running tours for $50 and selling meat and taking orders for meat and everything else. They were actually going out and injecting these birds at the farm. I don't know how. You started off the story tonight with some Chinese people importing biohazardous material and being charged with bioterrorism. If this isn't authorized, this falls under the same guise. But it appears that the University of BC is part of this. A company out in Quebec is part of this. A company here in Alberta is part of this. The Canadian government is part of this. It's just, you couldn't make this story up. And that's the point is, I said, is this a scam? What's the probability, the Occam's razor, that this is just a scam? They're trying to make some money, and they've made a lot of money with the GoFundMe. This is quite the elaborate scam to have been putting out stories and statements going back to 2020 and reiterating throughout that time, and getting lawyers involved and university professors involved, and statements from university professors in Japan to actually have a backstory that they could trigger in 2025 as some sort of financial scam. That doesn't sound believable. I hope, I have to say at this point in time, I hope this is a scam and all they're looking at is fraud and passing off and various other types of crimes in Canada. But if it's not, if that statement they've just issued, which they seem to be issuing to say, no, you have to believe us, we are a research lab. I don't know who's advising them, but that statement just dug them a hole bigger than ever before, because they've just implicated the Japanese authorities and universities in what, as I say, a story that is equivalent to the bioterrorism story you started this show with.
Yeah. And we know that they've been running these fundraisers, GoFundMe, and multiple websites. Like you, I also saw that they've raised somewhere around $250,000, maybe 300,000, maybe more. It's not clear, but it's a lot of money, at least $250,000, just through these fundraisers.
And again, you look at the people who are involved in supporting this. We've got the four heads of health in the US, the largest health budget country on the planet. We've got RFK Jr., Jay Bhattacharya, Macquarie, and Dr. Oz. Dr. Oz isn't just Dr. Oz. He's a part of Medicaid. He's running the health. He's running. So if this turns out to be something that escapes, he'll actually be writing the checks for people to receive treatments for anything that escapes from that lab and gets into the US.
Yeah.
So you've got four people that between them have outside. In fact, I think based on the four areas they cover, they have a bigger budget than the US military. And they couldn't do a basic Google search before issuing a public official statement to the Canadian government saying you need to keep these birds alive. And now we've got the Jap. I mean, seriously, there is no way that these people would issue a public statement without doing some background checks. If they did, then they all should be fired and potentially prosecuted for interfering with government, with a foreign government, and gross negligence. I mean, I can't say, because based on their words, and I've had some of the social influencers saying to me today, oh, we haven't been promoting people to go there. And I said, no, you haven't said, get in your car and drive down there. You don't need to say those words.
Yes,
but
they have. Yes, they have. Some of them have.
Well. But some of them haven't said that. Some of them have just had Katie on, and given the half of the story that is the pity story that encourages people to donate to them, and these poor people are being, they're being beaten up by the government, and we need to save the ostrich, and you need to do everything to help them. Well, if that's not an encouragement to go down there, I don't know what is. I mean, you don't have to use the words directly to actually be providing it. And by willfully, particularly some of them, I've sent the direct information, provable, referenced. They know what it is. And to actually, in media, to willfully ignore the truth and not do any background checks, that makes you negligent. And all the protections that the press gets, that's out the window now. You don't have those protections anymore because you are now part of the story. You're no longer a journalist.
That's right.
And for as I say, for a university professor, I don't know whether what they've posted today is a true email or whether they've typed it up in Microsoft Word themselves. The Japanese characters of the address at the top seem to be accurate. But Dr. Stephen Pelik is currently a professor at the University of BC. And he's effectively confirmed what this letter's saying. but not to this level. He's putting an awful lot on the line if he's lying. Or even if he's just ignorant, he's putting an awful lot on the line to be making public statements.
And this is a letter that they've made reference to as part of what is now a daily news PR information thing that they're doing every day on their website. And if you scroll down, this is today's news release that they're providing. They're saying that the Canadian Food and Inspection Agency is willfully lying, that they are providing misinformation. And there's even reference in here to, it is the CFIA media release, a narrative designed to justify the destruction of our farm, discredit our family, and protect a broken trade system. Let's get the truth out. They're accusing the government of straight up lying about this. And then this is that very small type that's very difficult to read. That's the quote or the excerpt from this email message that you've keyed in on here. And it's hard to read, but that's where this comes in. And you're saying that this is really a new revelation. It takes, this really confirms again that the farm, this research facility, was injecting these ostriches with COVID antigen, right?
Well, I'd say it's worse than that, because, I mean, Karen has said to you, and she said in a 2021 interview, that she injected the birds. But now they're saying that we have, but bear in mind that these injections were done from 2020 to 2022 when the world was locked down. International borders were closed. You couldn't travel. You had to have papers. The idea that one university, and potentially the university in BC, and the Canadian government were collaborating on shipping highly pathogenic viruses, zoonotic viruses, during the middle of a pandemic across international borders where the majority of people couldn't travel. And now we've got the very people who were complaining about that, who ran a convoy about not being able to cross the border, and now surrounding the farm, protecting them. It's like the cognitive disconnect. But again, you know, nobody more than me would like to find out that this was a con, that the birds are healthy, and there was no injections and nothing. But there's an awful lot of very credible people that have put their careers on the line. Bear in mind, what she's saying in here is that this information they had in January, they presented it to the CFIA, which would have been through their lawyer, Lee Turner. Now, I know Lee Turner from the Charles Hoffey case. The letter I forwarded to you, Rick, I forwarded a copy of that to Lee Turner to say, I know you're not the lawyer of record anymore, but you need to heads up, because they're making statements that you would have had access to this material because you were representing them, and the CFIA was saying they couldn't put that information into court. I mean, I can understand the CFIA making that stance anyway, because the court hearing was about whether the CFIA had jurisdiction based on the testing of the birds. It wasn't a trial about the research lab. It was a very different thing. So the judge has to sadly stay in a bit of a box when he's looking at evidence, and a lot of people don't understand that about the legal system. It's not a free-for-all every time you go to court. Right. And in this particular case, it wasn't. But at the same time,
it was simply a question of, did the CFIA have the authority to order the cull, and do they have the authority to just proceed with it? It's not about this, you know, whether the birds are infected, not infected. That is left to the CFIA. The court case was simply about, did they have the legal jurisdiction and authority to move ahead with it? And that's what their lawyer, the farm's lawyer, was challenging. That was the question before the court.
And they did say that they tried to challenge that these were genetically unique. And there's a very clear definition on that. I mean, these ostriches, injecting them with a pathogen doesn't make them genetically unique under that legislation. It just makes them lab animals that are required to be destroyed at the end of the experiment. It actually does the exact opposite of what they were trying to argue. But then they've now tried to spin that back to the Dr. Bob Church work on Rocky Mountain ostrich and Columbia ostrich and how they were transferred, and they're saying they don't have records on that. Well, the university would, because they have to. I mean, they don't just throw research papers away and the data away, because there's follow-up research that happens at the end of a research project. They don't just go, yeah, we're done now, let's just shred everything, and all the work we've done for the last 20 years we'll just shred. That doesn't happen. So
And in
I mean,
fact, all this talk about the, that we're engaging in here, focusing on the COVID research, that's separate and apart. This is just from the cull order, which was ordered because the birds became infected back in December, January, with bird flu. And so that's really the reason these birds are being targeted by the CFIA for culling, because they don't want the disease to spread.
Yep. And I mean, I actually posted a week or so ago, I said, if the statements that they are making turn out to be true, the CFIA are the least of their worries, because the agencies that should be dealing with this farm go way above the CFIA's mandates. And now if you're implicating an international importation of, I mean, when you're actually talking about bringing them across the border for experimentation purposes without any controls and without any licenses, you're talking bioterrorism. That's effectively what these Chinese people have just done. You can't.
Now, I will say this. They did indicate in the interview, Karen indicated in the interview with me, that they could not transport some of this stuff across, like from Japan to Canada during the pandemic. And so for at least a time, they said they were getting the antigens from, and they were working with a lab in Sherbrooke, Quebec, Immune Biosolutions. And that's because they received a $13 million grant funding from the federal government to do this exact kind of research. Now, so I did confirm this. I also confirmed the existence of the company. I found this media release confirming the money from the federal government going to Immune Biosolutions. And obviously, the funding for that would then have gone to pay for whatever involvement and whatever remuneration the research facility out in BC would be entitled to as a result of this. And they were, I guess, supposed to be providing eggs for research. And that's exactly the kind of work they do at this facility in Quebec. Now, I've made a number of phone calls to Immune Biosolutions in Quebec, asking them to confirm if indeed they were working with this farm, because I want to know, is like all this just being made up, or is it real? We know that the funding to Immune Biosolutions is real. No direct phone call back from Immune Biosolutions over the past 2 days. No response from the company itself, but I did get a hold of the public relations person who was responsible for working on that release. And she indicated to me that she didn't know if that farm out in BC was working with the lab. So still inconclusive, but I have made attempts, and I did speak to the lady on the phone who is listed on that media release.
And a big question for every media out there that's covered this story, including the BBC, the CBC, every alt media personality, Rebel News. Why haven't they done that? Because nobody else has actually. These are not hard things to do, to pick up the phone. They are bread and butter of the work you've done for 30 years. For me, as a retired police officer, I would normally, if I was still in uniform, I'd be going way beyond that. I wouldn't be accepting, we've got no comment. I'd be sending a colleague round to knock on their door and say, yeah, I need to see your records, because we have a credible investigation that may involve international travel and transportation and introduction into the food supply of highly contaminated level 3 and potentially level 4, because if, again, you have to take the worst case scenario when you're looking at it. Until you can prove otherwise, you can't say, we'll take a risk.
Yeah, and just to clarify too, just so people know, the PR person that I spoke with, she no longer works for the PR firm. This was back in 2021 when she was working for them, and they hired a PR firm to put that release out, the Immune Biosolutions company, and she said that it was a one-off thing. They only worked with that company the one time to do that one release, and she wasn't aware of the involvement of the farm out in BC. So just wanted to make that clear. And it was not difficult to track that person down at all. And I made one phone call once I got her number, and bam, I was like talking to her. So I don't know why other media outlets haven't done this.
And it's like your conversation you had with the Swankies and the birds that traveled. There's I mean, they're actually, you know, a lot of them are quite scared with what's going on with the story at the village, the town, that community of 500 people. What is it, you know, why is nobody asking those questions? And more importantly, why is nobody asking a follow-up question when Dr. Pelik says they injected them with the COVID antigens? And you know, they're trying to say that this, and right now I'm watching on social media people saying, well, you can't prove that letter. I don't need to prove that email is genuine. I didn't put it out.
Right. That's right.
I just have to assume they're not lying, because if they're not, if they are lying, then we've got a serious fraud situation going on.
And you've already indicated you don't know if it's real. For all we know, they made it up. We need verification on these things.
Yeah,
but they're the ones who put it out there.
Yeah, and I mean, like, they're putting out, we are working with this university professor who's working with the World Economic Forum. I mean, these are not conspiracies. These are facts, easily checked by any media, by anybody who's at the farm, who've all got their phones, and they've now got the, you know, the Starlink satellite that has been provided to them. I mean, it's not like they can't look up. What is this Sakamoto been up to? What has he done? Who is he partnering with? What viruses has he been working with, and how long back into the 90s? What is what's been going on with this farm and the history of them? So it's like, okay, so he may have been. That's enough for me. You know, people say go to the farm. I don't want to. I wouldn't go. I wouldn't be caught. I wouldn't be caught live there, and I'm definitely not going to be caught dead there. I mean, you know what? I'm not scared of COVID, but I'm scared of what it is they may be injecting with, and more importantly, if they have injected them with COVID or some other coronavirus, what that could become in a zoonotic transfer.
Right.
We've got no idea. These are not the same people that are there are complaining that, you know, the big pharma didn't do their proper studies. I agree with that. But what sorts of studies is this farm doing? I mean, talk about big pharma. Well, this is just big farm.
Yeah.
You just couldn't make this story up. They're literally everything that you could think they're fighting against. And everybody's pushing it. Oh, no, they're saying they're a research farm. And that's why we need to keep the birds. So you can keep researching on them and again, you know, the natural remedies they keep talking about. There's nothing natural about taking human viruses and other animal viruses and injecting them into birds to see what happens. And especially, you know, when you get to a point where they start dying en masse, and they were dying en masse. The dates in the court documents say the 69 animals died between December and January 15th. The statement that the email that they've just produced is a response. It appears to be a response to maybe the lawyer for the court filing to say, we need some information from you to show that you've been working with this farm. And on January 4th, while these birds were dropping dead, he says, yes, I'm sending faculty members and students to the farm in BC to inject birds with pathogens. I mean, how is that not an international incident? Now, I mean, we just keep escalating. They're not I don't see a farm that's creating a defense. I see a farm that's digging itself a hole.
Indeed. And they keep saying that they have been complying with the CFIA's quarantine order. But every time I turn around, I see evidence to the contrary, potentially. They even, I even have to wonder about this, and I think some other people have raised this question as well. Let me just bring this up again on the screen. But they are under orders, I believe, to like not move the birds off the premises, not move any like feathers or eggs or any of the other things that were involved in this in experimentation. And yet they went to the legislature, the provincial legislature, to and or the local council offices, I guess.
Now that's less than a month ago, and they posted today they've been under CFIA quarantine for 155 days.
Right.
That's less than 155 days ago. They actually, with members of the local government of British Columbia, I mean, has Eby come forward to say he signed off on the movement of this, and to breach the quarantine order?
Yeah, I mean, there they are. They're carrying eggs. They have feathers.
Yep.
That, like, those things could be infected with the bird flu virus,
or any virus. I mean, that's again, we have no idea. We know for a fact what Sakamoto was experimenting with. We know that Dr. Stephen Pelik has said they were working with viruses. We know that the farm has said since 2020 in their court filings they've been researching with multiple viruses since 2020. I mean, it's not just. I mean, avian flu would be bad enough for the quarantine order to be breached. I mean, I'm worried about that, particularly when they bring a 13-year-old girl who was up till recently in the ICU, having contracted a different strain of avian flu, and they've got her on the farm that is currently under quarantine. I mean, just for a PR exercise, they don't care about this 13-year-old. Yeah. Like she's currently in a recovery state. She has multiple comorbidities, which she's the family have declared, and she was in ICU. She could have died from the virus that this farmers say they're going to cure with the birds that they've said they've been infected with. Like, I'm still, my mind is still boggled at why the authorities haven't turned up. And I mean, in this latest statement, they said today they had a 5.5-hour call with CFIA or meeting with CFIA. I don't know what they're talking about for 5.5 hours. They said they were handing over all this research material. I mean, maybe that's what CFIA are now doing, is handing it over to FAC and the RCMP and saying, you know what, this has nothing to do with us anymore. And maybe, the next fans that turn up won't be the euthanasia team, it'll be a quarantine team. Because based on the information that the farm is saying is true, so you've got to either take them at their word for it if you're going to support them, or call them liars. You can't say, well, you're being ridiculous and you're overblowing the situation by taking them at their word when, they pose no risk. They're healthy. Well, tell the 69 that died in January that. And who knows how many others, like the ones that were, certainly the last one that was allegedly shot, I can say for definite, that was, and it definitely wasn't shot by a drone. But that wasn't a shot to the head. That bird was already dead. I haven't seen the bird, so I'm not making that statement after a forensic investigation. I'm just saying from the scene photographs that I've seen, that's the only conclusion I can come to. And anybody who comes to another conclusion, I don't know what the RCMP are doing as part of that investigation, but to me, this just comes back to, we have a farm that says they've been handling pathogens that the only place they have any business being is in a level 3 biolab. And if they have gone to the level of what this Japanese guy has been using, a level 4 biolab, and anything outside of that is criminal. That's and right now we have children playing the bouncy castles. I mean, these are the bouncy castles and the candy floss. They weren't to lure adults there; they were to lure children there. This is despicable. This is, to me, this is, I don't want to make this is the child molester in the ice cream van. Like, you don't do these things. They didn't pick bouncy castles. You know what? If it was for the adults, they'd be beer tents. They wouldn't be bouncy castles and candy floss. It is designed to target children, to bring them there. And the only reason to have children there when they're trying to stop the CFIA coming to cull the birds is to effectively turn them into human shields.
Yes.
Is to say they can't do anything because there's children here, they can't put them at risk. And that is a reality. I mean, it changes the whole dynamic of the situation when you've got children on scene. The RCMP would have to do a very, very different tactical approach to how they came in to keep people safe, because their number one priority is keeping people safe.
Yeah.
And I don't see from the statements that this farm's making, selling eggs, doing tours, and flying people out from Japan to inject them with pathogens. I mean, was that part of the tour? Watch the doctors inject the birds? I don't know. I mean, it's
the strangest story I think I've ever covered.
I was a police officer when the Jamie Bulger incident, the little kid in Liverpool who was kidnapped by 2 small children and beaten to death. The person who killed him lived behind me. That was one of the most horrific stories that I ever got involved in as a police officer, and it was in Liverpool. And there've been others since that, have made me feel physically sick. What's going on at this farm, if it's true, and we need to believe, we're supposed to believe the farm and their expert witnesses, this makes me physically sick. That the risk that they're putting children in, and Katie hugging, and they're using these people as props. Yeah, and I mean, maybe they also need to put on some glowing masks and see how many of them are infected.
Well, here's the Dr. Sakamoto over in Japan, and he's wearing rubber gloves while he's handling the eggs that he's experimenting on. And
Yep.
This is the guy they've been working with. Even over there, he's got at least some protocols in place for what's been going on. But
I haven't checked what the protocols are for Japan in handling this stuff. I don't really care about what Japan's doing. That's up to them. But I do know what the Canadian legislation and regulations say about handling this stuff. And this is way above CFIA. This is way above the avian flu. But even on the avian flu side, they're supposed to be under quarantine, and taking eggs down to the Parliament building is not really part of the quarantine. I mean, I suppose David Eby might be able to give an exemption because public health is the realm, but it's public health of people, not animals. I mean, the governing body is the CFIA. He doesn't have the authority to just say, "Oh, don't pay no attention to that. We want some photo ops with eggs."
Yeah. No, he can't just give an exemption like that. Because actually, this is also getting into whether it's provincial or federal territory and jurisdiction. And I don't think that the premier can just provide an exemption when it comes to something of this gravity.
And you say, I mean, you pointed out yesterday and in the last few shows the connection with the radio guy, the billionaire, whatever he is, down there that seems
John
to be connected.
Catsimatidis, WABC.
We've actually got a US connection going all the way up to the highest officers in the government, responsible for. Jay Bhattacharya is the person responsible for all research and governance of labs in the US. And they also fund foreign labs. Like NIH under Fauci was funding for gain of research the Wuhan lab.
Yeah.
Did they just decide that this farm was going to be the new Wuhan? And like, again, Jay Bhattacharya is pulling the funding from China and telling everybody we should, with Dr. Oz, again, we call him Dr. Oz, but the reality is Mehmet Oz is the guy in charge of Medicaid, the guy in charge of making sure the people in the country have healthcare and are treated for anything that happens to them. It's his responsibility. RFK Jr. is in charge of the whole lot, and all he's talking about is the food dyes in Cocoa Pops. But bring down these ostriches that have been working with universities in Japan and injecting them with pathogens and developing nasal sprays and masks and tests. If this was a story that became a movie, nobody would believe it. It is just too far-fetched.
Yeah, and with this research that they say they have been doing since 2020, and the researcher in Japan even before that, what have they actually developed from it? Some sort of a hair tonic with ostrich antibodies, they say, will grow your hair. Some sort of a lozenge that if you take it, I guess it makes you feel better if you get COVID. Masks that they say are infused with ostrich antibodies and will glow in the dark if COVID comes into contact with it. So they say, although the studies, I'm not even sure, it doesn't.
There's also a short that somebody's put together that Katie shared recently that actually says they've also been working on a slimming product. So basically, I don't know, are they going to call it Exempic and replace Ozempic? I joked a few weeks ago when I first heard this. I said, I'm just waiting for them to, the next product that they're producing from cosmetics and such like will be a replacement for Ozempic. And then this video comes out with, it's, we're going to treat obesity with, it's like, where are the studies? Where are the papers? I mean, they say they've now handed it over to the CFIA, but under what conditions were you doing these experiments? It doesn't matter where you extract the antibodies. I mean, it does from, a transportation and everything else. It doesn't matter if that's done in a level 3 biolab with all the conditions. If it was sent out by UPS or in the back of Dr. Pelik's car, we've already breached the protocols. But the reality is they're out in an open air farm, and that's where it's all starting. That's where the injections are happening. And somebody has to get these pathogens to the farm in the first place. How are they being transported? Where are they coming from? Because they said the contract ended. It was cancelled with the Quebec firm, but they're still classing themselves as a research facility.
Well, then they started to work, they said, more directly with the professor over in Japan. So that means they had to be sending the antigens directly from Japan at that point.
I don't know. I mean, but again,
maybe
it's this. When people say you can't prove that, I don't need to prove that. They need to prove they weren't doing that. They're the ones making that statement. I'm not making that statement. I'm just reacting to what I would expect as a police officer and in biosecurity, what I would expect to be in place if they were telling the truth. And I have concerns about how, I mean, I can see, they haven't been putting this stuff in the food supply. Well, you were running tours, selling eggs, selling cosmetics, selling dog food, all during this period. So that's an out and out lie. There's no other way of looking at that. So I don't take what she says as a trusted source, but I do go back to what Dr. Pelik said, a university professor at the UBC, who effectively seems to reinforce the contents of that email. He never said.
And just to show people, like, here's the interview that I did with Karen again. Here's a little clip from her talking about, she's the one who says that they were injecting the birds.
Japan, and realized this amazing scientist was tapping into the immune system of the ostrich. Now, ostrich have one of the strongest immune systems of any land animal. And we thought, wow, these animals just keep surprising us and giving back. And so we started, we wanted to work with Dr. Sakamoto, but at first we couldn't because of everything through the world. The borders, everything was shut right down for any products passing anywhere. So we found a lab in Quebec, and we started to work with them. They were a chicken facility, and they were very intrigued by our ostrich. So we worked with them, and we built antibodies with the ostrich. And that's what we do, is we give them a tiny antigen of a dead virus just to the hens. And within 2 weeks, they build an immunity. In another 2 weeks, they take those antibodies, those amazing antibodies, and they put them into their eggs. Now, the antigen we give is the smallest amount, because it's the same amount they give a chicken. So we were like, wow, if we only need that tiny bit that they give a chicken, well, then nothing's going to happen with our birds. And we did monitor, check them, because we love them. They're our pets. And they had no fever, nothing. They went on to clucking. We walk amongst our birds, so when we give the antigen, they didn't even know they were getting it. And they went on and started to lay the eggs. We had them tested, and we were like, oh my goodness, we're 98% effective for COVID-19 antibodies. And so we went from that point of being 98% effective, we were just on cloud nine. That was blocking it. Then the next year what we did was we went on to test for, sorry, I got a little sidetracked there for a second. Then the next year we went on, and they thought, oh, we can build this antigen to be universal. So we went on and we did the antigen, and sure enough, the test results came back that we neutralized. So we went beyond the crown of the virus, and we actually went to the nucleus of the cell, and we neutralized the virus. So this was an amazing discovery, and we were like, we're producing natural antibodies that can actually help cure somebody. Oh my goodness, this was amazing, and that we're neutralizing it. So they were testing the variants, and we had passed 98% effective. The last one test was Omicron. Then a week later, the lab was just so excited that we had all this information of these natural antibodies. And a week later, we get a phone call that they've sold the lab. The owner of the lab had a non-competition clause, was not allowed to talk to us anymore. Our project was closed down permanently. And we thought, wow, that was a really hard thing to handle for the farm, for sure, and a major blow. But then we thought, okay, well, we reached back out to Dr. Sakamoto, and Dr. Sakamoto said, hey, things have opened up. I absolutely want to work with you guys. He has 50 ostrich of his own. He loves them. They're like his pets. And he said, I love the idea that you guys walk amongst them and that you love your animals. And he said, so it's fabulous. I'm in. Let's work together. And so we started to work together, and we were actually doing antibody projects. And the last one that we were working on was a diet pill that had benefits for diabetics, and again, all natural. And you would just take this pill before you ate, and you, over 70 days, could lose an average of 30 pounds. But it had benefits to diabetes.
Well, she just confirms that, like, she says the stuff. It's not me. It's not you. It's her. It's them. They're saying it.
And she says that they cancelled the work with the Quebec firm as Omicron came out. Well, Omicron came out in November 2021. She says in the Pig Farm interview that they were injecting the birds, and that was in, I think, April 2021, or no, sorry, August 2021. She said we were injecting the birds, and last year, so 2020, we got 99.9% efficacy if the the antigens were infused in masks. So she's saying they were working with infusing them in masks. And the only person I know that was doing that sort of work in 2020 and 2021 was Sakamoto. There wasn't anybody else doing that I can. And he was working with the World Economic Forum on that project, according to the Reuters articles and the World Economic Forum's own stuff. So,
well,
I mean,
they were promoting it. I found the article that they published on the WEF website. So they were in favor of it, acknowledging it, promoting the idea on their website.
Yeah. And again, based on the timelines that she's provided, let's say if this is a con, this is a long game that's been in play for a very long time to pull the trigger on a GoFundMe in 2025 to save some birds from avian flu. Somebody's been providing them with money. Somebody's been providing them with resources for the last 5.5 years. There seems to be some direct connections. Their expert witness, and again, their lawyer would have had to vet the stuff. He's not presenting false evidence in court that he's aware of is false. He's basically doing his due diligence, speaking to his expert witnesses. I mean, expert witnesses, as much as, you know, they're not completely independent. They work with the lawyers. They have to give their own opinion, but the lawyer will coach them on the things that are relevant for the court. So because expert witnesses like to sort of go all over the place and toot their own horns. So they usually sort of keep you focused on what we're actually going for here. But by all of their own statements, they've been injecting these birds, experimenting on these birds. She says in that interview with you, her pets. Well, I've got dogs. I have never at any point in my life, and certainly not with COVID, thought, you know what I should do with my dogs is inject them with some pathogens and see what happens. Because that's how much I love my animals. That's how much I love my pets, is I want to inject them with a foreign human-born pathogen to see what happens during a pandemic.
Yeah, and I have a dog, but I don't have 398 or 400 or 500 dogs. I have a dog.
Well, actually, I think if my wife had the ability, we would have 500 border collies at the house.
I have a border collie too. How do you like that? And it's become this information war, a public relations tug of war. But now, because of your work and the work of others, it is beginning to resonate with some other people out there. People are beginning to realize that there's more to this story. As a result, I've come across posts like this on social media just over the last day. This from some person called That Girl from TikTok saying, Universal Ostrich Farm, I have questions, and all of you should too. I will eagerly await your next press release, which is part of the PR game. And we've shown you tonight that now out at the Universal Ostrich Research Facility, they are posting daily media releases and doing some sort of an online social media program in the mornings to get their message out in their way. And it says, were you using community members as guinea pigs, selling manure and eggs from hens injected with COVID? And I know, David, that you've highlighted this concern. And here's the video that this social media influencer posted as a result of, these issues being raised.
Taking so much fucking time and energy to think, were they selling meat? What year did they sell meat?
I'm going to run this again just from the top. So this person taking, I think, some of the actual evidence that you've presented, David, and then just putting it up on the screen, the documents, just showing that there's other information out there that seems to contradict or answer even the questions that have been raised and cut through the tiers, I guess.
People taking so much fucking time and energy to think, were they selling meat? What year did they sell meat? What were they doing? Are they using these animals as guinea pigs?
And just to clarify, the woman in the video is Katie Besitny, the daughter of Karen Esperson, who is one of the co-owners of the research farm. And she's upset. She's crying. She keeps crying in her videos tugs at the heartstrings. And so she's repeating questions now, upset that people are asking these questions, that I've asked the questions, you've asked the questions. And she's saying, don't listen to other people, just listen to us. We'll give you the truth. But the truth is also in the court documents, which they filed as part of their court challenge to the CFIA cull order. And it seems to contradict what she's been saying.
If we were using these animals as guinea pigs, I don't think we would be fighting this hard because we love them so much. We don't have time to protect. That PCR test shouldn't be the test that is used in these situations, that it shouldn't even exist. We're taking a stand here. We're taking a stand, and it's for the world to be protected against the tyranny of the stamping out policy. That's what led us here. We don't stand for misinformation, and we definitely don't stand for anything but the truth.
It's funny, I mean, again, I'd look at it with my police hat on, which is sitting behind me. I've seen, as time's gone on, some embedded in their press statements are what I call veiled threats for anybody questioning what they say. Early on, there was, if you don't repeat what we say, then you could be committing defamation and we'll come after you. And then this latest one, they outline the criminal code for if you don't tell the truth, you're committing a criminal offense. Correct, Katie? You are. Well, I mean, you're hauling yourself up here by your own, hoisting yourself by your own petard, because your post on Facebook outlines what you were doing. You were taking orders for meat. You were, as was on that TikTok, and I found that by doing some digging. The tours of the farm, selling the eggs, selling the meat, selling the oil, and the prices they were charging. The eggs for research purposes are $48,000 according to Dr. Pelik, but the eggs for Easter, they're $25. You know what? Any university out there that's looking to do some research with these eggs, get yourself a deal, buy them at Easter. I mean, it's just ridiculous.
Yeah, we showed that on here. And today's release that they have up on their website, it says, we never thought we would have to speak out like this, but after the Canadian Food Inspection Agency, CFIA, published their May 30th and now updated on May 31st media releases, we have no choice. What they released to the public is not science. It is, by definition, disinformation. Disinformation is false information deliberately created and disseminated with the intent to mislead, manipulate, or cause harm. Where have we seen this before? And then it says right here, and this is the veiled threat. Are you aware that Section 372 of the Criminal Code makes it an offense to knowingly convey false information with the intent to injure or alarm another person? This includes false communications made via telecommunication, and penalties can include imprisonment for up to 2 years. Reference Government of Canada Justice Law's website, Criminal Code. That's
who was that really? I don't think that was intended for the CFIA because they don't care. I mean, they're making public statements. That was intended for anybody who's not following the narrative and doing as they're told.
Yeah, that's for me.
And me.
Yes, that's right.
And you know what? Bring it on.
Yeah,
I'm quite happy to stand in front of a judge and expose all of this sooner rather than later. Because and again, I'd rather believe they're not being truthful. I don't want to believe that what the statements they're making are true, because the implications of that are terrifying, and they shouldn't be. I mean, and you can argue, well, nobody's dropped dead other than the ostriches that keep dropping dead. There are no people that have dropped dead or got sick. I don't know that. There's a lot of people left the farm, and then suddenly, they're not. Like where's Kellyanne Wolf? In the big convoy that came out east, she lasted there a day or so and then is gone. I mean, maybe she actually got there and saw what was really going on and went, yeah, I don't know why. Like these are hardcore convoy protesters that drove across the country. across one of the biggest countries in the world by car, got to the farm, and then turned around and left. It's like, that doesn't seem like a lot of commitment there. I mean, they took longer driving there than they spent there. What was that all about? I mean, at least they stayed 3 weeks in Ottawa. There's something going on. There is something we're missing. So when there's a gap, all you can do is take them at their word. And we know that they're not being truthful, but we also know that the implications of what a university professor and that email and their prior posts, the implication of that is this is a completely out of control, not even uncontrolled, out of control level 3 biolab that makes Wuhan look like the perfect research facility, which it wasn't. You just couldn't pick a worse story or environment, and the fact that they keep going on about the fact that these ostriches are very robust, they have extremely good immune systems. The people around them don't. I mean, that just makes it worse because it means that they're less likely to show signs and symptoms. And I mean, they can't really say to anybody, you know what, my throat's sore. Just because they don't look like they've got symptoms doesn't mean they're not symptomatic. Because I don't know what a sick ostrich looks like that's got avian flu.
We know that because they are less likely to die, they are more likely to survive bird flu. Chickens more likely to die, but these birds can be very effective, efficient, asymptomatic carriers of the bird flu virus, which makes them a real risk.
And again, you know, what is there? Like Sakamoto's been experimenting with avian flu back in the 90s with ostriches, and with H5N1, and with in 1997, I think it was, or thereabouts. There's an article on it, but he's been injecting them with other pathogens. I'm pretty sure if he had huge die-offs every time he injected them with a pathogen, he would have stopped his research, or somebody would have stopped his research, which means that these birds are surviving, so they just keep injecting them with more and more. I mean, that's not good science. That's not good research. If you're going to inject something for research purposes to see what the outcome is, you inject them with one thing, not one thing after another.
Right.
Because the reality is, if they suddenly drop dead, did they drop dead because of the long-term impacts of the COVID vaccine or a Zika vaccine or was it avian flu, or was it the ducks? The ducks that don't seem to have, I mean, other than potentially that Ohio victim, where did those ducks go? There's 500 ducks flying around with avian flu that managed to kill 69 ostriches. These robust, strong creatures. And again, we don't know exactly how many. Apparently there's 5 pens, but they're using 3 of them for the quote unquote healthy birds in this last statement. Where's the pictures of the huge flock of close to 400 birds? I still haven't seen that. And it's funny that in the recent statements, because it's come up on your show and I've been bringing it up, the question of how many birds are there really? Where are all the birds? In that same video, she talks about, you know, why are people so focused on finding out, you know, if we were still selling these products? Well, because you said you didn't, and because your whole case relies on the fact that you weren't pathogen infected products into the food, into the general food area. That's one reason why people are asking about it. And then the second one, she says, and why are people so focused on how many birds we've got left? Because if they're still dying, that would be an important piece of information to know. If it's more than 69, and maybe some have died since, then I think that's important information for people to know, especially people who are currently at the farm.
And we confirmed through a phone call and through other media reports that some of these birds were sold to other farms after the research began. And the lady that I spoke to at the other farm, 300 kilometers away, confirmed to me that they knew the research was going on when they received these birds. She also indicated that they viewed this as a business opportunity, but then didn't really explain what the business opportunity was that they were being presented with. I also learned that the birds that they purchased, they say, were returned, but I don't know when. But they were returned to the farm. Don't know why, but something. There's a lot more information there as well. So was the business opportunity for the other farm they only bought 6 birds. Was that because they were raising them to sell for food? That's not like a food operation, like to farm them for, to slaughter them and, to breed them and have a perpetual sustainable operation like that. So they weren't using them to send for slaughter. So what were they using them for if there was a business opportunity? So now I'm thinking, you see where I'm going with that? And I don't want to make an accusation here.
No, I can't. I mean, I won't make an accusation, but I'll make a logical conclusion of the only other business opportunity. I mean, unless you're going to put a saddle on them and have them for rides for children, the only other business opportunity for experimented birds that produce eggs that are worth $48,000, allegedly, according to their expert witness, is the business opportunity of continuing the research. Even if you're not injecting the birds yourself, but if you've got birds that you've been told these birds are producing eggs that have got antigens in them and the eggs are worth $48,000, that's a business opportunity that a lot of people would actually, even when the timing was what it was, might actually not think about asking the question, is this safe? They just go, how much?
That's right.
It's a sad fact of humanity is people actually can be persuaded to do things they would not normally do when suddenly dollars hit them. Now, as you say, none of us knows why they did that, but
which raises
said
another serious
$93,000
question here.
Yeah.
If you have, so this research facility, we know that one of the main pillars of their business plan originally was to import birds, get involved in selective breeding, genetically selecting certain types of birds from South Africa. At one point I've read that they had as many as 1,000 birds, then other times 500, but they were supplying other farms across Canada with ostriches. And they've indicated that their ostrich operation has been the largest in Canada, and they are as much as 20% of all the ostriches in Canada came from that farm. We know that. They've also said that. The question is, if they were still selling birds after their research began in 2020, we know they sold to at least one other farm. So how many other farms may have received birds from them after the research began? So does this mean that we have research going on at other farms?
I mean, this is a question. This is why I included 2 MPs from Alberta. I said, I need to know, and I've asked the university, I need to know, because the bio company that Karen is a part owner of is in Alberta, in Calgary. So, and as you said, that radio guy who seems to be very heavily invested, I don't know whether it's financially or not, but certainly invested in his token. He's out of Calgary as well.
He has an office in Calgary, which is for his oil refinery, which is, I have to remember where it is. I think it's I'll have to look it up. I don't want to say, I mentioned it on the program the other night, but yeah. And they have a pipeline, I guess, that flows from Alberta right into his oil refinery. And at Calgary office, we've got all the politics surrounding pipelines, separatism, all of these things. And it's just too many, the dots are too close together not to begin connecting them.
So, in the court documents filed into court, Karen Esperson, co-owner of Struthio Biosciences Inc. I think this is also on a LinkedIn profile. Owner and president of Universal Ostrich Farms Inc. states that her group holds 80% of the breeder ostriches within their group in Canada. She was part of, and I think their family was part of, basically the ostrich organization for Canada, the governing body of ostriches in Canada, and the group has actually controlled 80% of the ostriches in Canada. So does that mean they provided not 20%, but 80%? I mean, are they literally the monopoly for ostrich research in Canada? And then maybe down into the US with the US company they were connected with? And as I say, I mean, it's hard to rationalize why the top 4 health officials in the Trump administration would come out and make statements they've made that have global implications. And then some researcher from the university, let me just, so there's a there's on her page, she's got a write-up about Struthio Bioscience, which is hers. And in that she actually talks about
yeah, she's talking here 3 months ago about trying to save the birds from the CFIA.
Source guide. There's an article that one of her articles on her LinkedIn page. Says, I've been in the ostrich industry since 1991. My business partner, Dave Belinsky, and I are the leaders in Canada in the industry. Our parent company, Ostrich Farms Inc., Universal Ostrich Farms Inc., sells breeders to other farms and teaches them how to incubate, hatch, and raise the ostrich. Each producer that comes into our group gets a 5-year contract from Amiga Ostrich Inc., which is also their company, a subsidiary company of Universal Ostrich. Amiga Ostrich buys all the yearlings produced by the farmers in our group at $3 a pound live weight. And this is what I was saying the other day. They said they had 500 ostriches in 21 and 23, and they're connected to all these other farms where anybody who buys ostriches from them, the agreement is they sell the yearlings back to them. So how has that farm not been increasing its ostriches during that time? Like I would have expected that farm, if they've been selling ostriches, and bear in mind that these ostriches can have up to 100 eggs. Each hen can have up to 100 eggs a season. And they're not all going to produce yearlings, but that's a lot of eggs and a lot of ostriches that are coming back. And if you look at the videos, you can see there's quite a few young birds there. So the 500 they had in 21, why is that not been increasing? Is it just purely because they've been slaughtering them for the meat, or is there more ostriches that have been dying? I mean, until the CFIA was called, the assumption is they were still carrying on this business because this Struthio Bioscience didn't get created until 2022, and this is the statement. It's in a LinkedIn profile of her bio, who they are. Can I share this?
Yeah.
I've got to find which page it is that I've got up here.
So let's take a little break, and that'll give you a chance to cue this stuff up, and we'll be right back on the other side.
Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals, defenders of individual rights and freedoms, credible, trusted, grounded in reality. Maverick News, Maverick News. Defending free speech, free speech. Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching. Maverick News. The world is watching.
Oh shit, there we go. Got it.
Yeah, and they say the world is watching. Out at the research farm, they stole our slogan, but that's I won't charge them anything. Okay, so let me see. Where is the what do I need to show on the screen? Is that there? You go.
Yep.
Okay.
I can zoom that in. So this is her LinkedIn profile. Struthio Bioscience didn't start till 2022, and in here it says Omega Ostrich buys all yearlings by the farmers in our group at $3 per live weight. Each producer that comes into our group gets a 5-year contract with Universal Ostrich. So they've been selling those 6 birds that were sold to that farm. The expectation was, and in the article they sort of infer that they would be buying stuff back from them, but here she clearly states, and further down, I mean, they talk about their body care company, and she's also the director of the Canadian Ostrich Association. We have 80% of the breeder ostrich within our group in Canada. We've also partnered with Bizarre Pets, which is Katie Besitny's company, is what I understood, which still has an Instagram and Facebook page selling dog food, which is apparently 100% sourced from the ostriches. And yeah, these are her words in her about on her LinkedIn. I don't have to, try and make anything up. All I have to do is take them at the word. So where are all the birds that she was getting back onto the farm? Because that to me would increase these birds. She says that, she's got a bunch of birds that are 34 years old and they live to about 80 years. So they're not having a lot of dying of old age, but they should have an absolute ton of new yearlings over the last 5 years. So their stock should be way above 500. They filed into court to say they had 500. They've made public statements on Facebook and various other interviews going back to 2020, and in November 2021, they gave that somebody went out, a reporter went out and did a tour of the farm and did a story about, his ostrich, the new beef. Like, that doesn't sound like, why would you be talking to a research facility that's experimenting on antibodies about whether ostriches were the new beef? That doesn't seem, those two stories don't seem to align. And again, they said, well, we've got 500 ostriches. In 2024, Karen did or 23, she did the YouTube video saying, we've got 500 ostriches. Where did all the, did all the ostriches that go to other farms, did they die? Or did they all get shipped back? Or if I got a 5-year contract and I've got hens that, I've got six hens that are laying 100 eggs a year, and I've been shown how to incubate them to create yearlings, I'm sending 600 birds a year back to the farm. And they don't seem to have increased their numbers. In fact, they seem to be decreasing their numbers. Why is that?
I don't know. There's so many unanswered questions still. And
yeah,
every day there seems to be something new and weirder.
And they also talk about here, we're now working with ostrich antibodies and Ostrich Farmer USA, so another US connection. And any of these people that are stepping up, and these high-profile people in the US connected to these companies? I don't know. I haven't done that research, but it's a reasonable question to ask. Is there some sort of connection that we don't know about? But again, we can talk about, to me, what I talk about this is the post-mortem investigation questions. The real important questions right now is, I say you don't talk about whether you switch the oven off while the house is burning down. You can go check that later. The investigation will show whether you turn the oven off. The first point is put the fire out. If this is a research facility that's been handling deadly pathogens that are, in some cases, airborne, and have been injected by researchers from Japan during the last 5 years, this needs to be contained now, not, we shouldn't be talking about it. The CFIA shouldn't be having chats as to whether they're culling the animals. Somebody from Health Canada needs to secure the facility. Because if they don't know, they have to secure. They locked the world down with less evidence than is showing up with this farm. Literally, we locked the world down with less tangible evidence of risk than we have in this farm.
Even now, people speculate as to whether the virus came from the Wuhan lab or not. And yet here we are with confirmation that these birds have been injected with an antigen related to COVID research, and nobody seems to be reacting to any of it.
And Stephen Pelik, in his interview with Rebel, used the words COVID spike protein.
Right.
You can't be any clearer than that. That is the very thing that makes people sick.
And there was I have a clip here I'm going to run for you. I don't know if you've seen this. This was day 6 of the protest. One of the protesters, Jess Prisonson, talks about a wealthy U.S. donor who seems to be funding what is going on out there.
A day or two ago, the owners of the farm received an email from CFIA saying that they are coming within the week to carry out the cull of the healthy ostriches, all 399 of them. And that was pretty great timing, actually, because we have a super generous donor from the U.S. who is trying to make things happen for us. This morning, we unloaded a huge trailer full of supplies. I did inventory. Now we're sending out a wish list for things we still need. Apparently there are bouncy castles on the way. We are still waiting for Starlink to come. We've heard rumors about shower trucks. We shall see. there's a lot of moving parts to this, and it's kind of relying on people to pick stuff up and bring it down, and there's buses being organized.
So who's the wealthy U.S. donor? I mean, I can guess.
Well, actually, everybody who's been named, the radio host, RFK Jr., Jay Bhattacharya, Macquarie, and Dr. Oz all fit that profile.
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, is Donald Trump involved in this? I mean, he picked these people to surround himself with, to deal with research, health, everything. Does he not know?
And the guy who owned the radio show host, he's worth an estimated $4.3 billion, John Catsimatidis. He owns a grocery store chain in New York. He owns WABC Radio in New York. That's this radio station that has been promoting the narrative that we're hearing from the farm with no talk about any of the other information we're sharing with you here. He brought RFK Jr. onto his radio station to talk about this. He brought Dr. Oz onto his radio station to talk about this. And then the letters flowed from HHS and RFK Jr. and Dr. Jay Bhattacharya. It's all centered around this guy who also has the office back in Calgary, where Struthio Biolabs also has an office. And what's Canada involved in right now? 51st state stuff, separatism, pipelines, big oil money. The guy owns an oil refinery, getting money directly from Alberta. We see separatist sentiment being ramped up in Alberta, in BC as well. The same social media influencers who keep talking about the 51st state and separatism are the same ones who are out there spinning up this narrative and not talking and ignoring the other information that we're sharing here. So, my radar is up.
Yep. That's, I mean, as I say, I tried to avoid this story, but there was a point at which you just couldn't ignore it. You just, there are too many red flags that say, yeah, I need to look at this. I can't just stand by. I mean, I did the exact same thing when COVID started in 2020. I could have, I run a business that I work from home. I work remotely. I do investigations all around the world. I do compliance work, and I don't have to leave my house to do that. So, I mean, you could argue that COVID was perfect for me. But instead of just going, oh, here's an advantage to make some money, I actually said, I need to look at what's going on. And so I did that, and it's exposed things that's going on in care homes and various other places, and I'm still doing that today, and I really, I would rather be dealing with that stuff than talking about ostriches. But the reality is, if what these people are saying is true, then we're heading towards another 2020. And again, for this to be a con, the people that are involved and the timelines, you talk about having to create a backstory for a con. This is talking about a long game and some very big players. Like, what is the incentive for RFK Jr. and Jay Bhattacharya and Macquarie and Dr. Oz? What is the incentive for them to put their careers on the line to come out in support of an unauthorized biolab that could embarrass them?
Yeah.
I mean, if this gets beyond you and me and got into the government, the counter narrative in the government, they could play merry hell with, what are you doing, RFK? You're supposed to be protecting people, and between you and your head of Medicaid, who you are in charge of, wants to ship these things across the country into basically, are we at the next? Are we going to bring the bats from Wuhan? And
Dr. Oz says he send them on down here to my ranch in Florida. We'll save them here. Yeah.
Yeah, as you say, call him out on that, because it's not going to happen. But the fact that he was willing to say it is scary. But again, because he's not. I mean, you can say, well, I was saying it as a private citizen, but you're not a private citizen. You're the head of Medicaid for the US government. Right. You are no longer a private citizen when you make statements that relate to health. Like RFK Jr., it wouldn't matter whether he posted this on his Twitter account as a personal statement or not. You are the Secretary of Health and Human Services. You make any statement relating to health, it doesn't matter whether you put it on a letterhead or not. It's an official government statement at that point. Yeah. There is no separation. And in fact, the government, the courts here in Canada have made it clear, ironically with Rebel News, where they went after a politician for blocking them on Twitter. And the courts held it doesn't matter that it's his private Twitter account. He is a public official. It is now a public interest. And anything he says, even on his own private social media, is considered public interest. So you can't block it, which is ironic because Daniel Smith has blocked me on Twitter.
Congratulations.
Yeah, no. Oh, I'm collecting them. I've got a few. I do consider her a badge of honor. And the irony of it is she's been the person that Rebel News took to court about that public interest case and had the court rule that politicians can't block people, is a politician that Daniel Smith goes after all the time on social media and who hasn't blocked her. It's just the ironies of it. But again, the point is, we're talking about very important people that have put a lot on the line to come out and make very public statements about stuff that they should be more alarmed, not supporting. Like they should be saying, what's going on in Canada across? I mean, they're so worried about the border and about drugs getting across the border and immigrants getting across the border, but you got no problem with an uncontrolled level 3 biolab across the border.
They're laying charges against 2 Chinese nationals because they wanted to do research using a substance that they say is potentially could be used for Aggro Terrorism, but they wanted to study at the University of Michigan. So those people are in court today. But what's going on at this bio lab, this thing, and it's like, send the ostriches to Florida. We'll take them all. It makes no sense.
So it wasn't 2 years. It wasn't 2022. Struthio Bioscience was set up in April 2021. I've just gone back to an old screenshot of a LinkedIn. Just want to correct the record before somebody jumps on and says, you said 2022. Yeah, it was April 2021. We pulled the screen up anyway for people to see. But that's a company been operating out of Alberta, making statements about selling birds across the country and taking the hens and bringing them back, that has been experimenting on all of these birds since 2020, since before the statement of we're selling them all over the country. And we know they have because you tracked down and spoke to the owners of a farm who received such birds, knowing they were part of virus research.
Yes. And now we have these protesters out there using children as human shields. We have them strategizing. They needed Starlink for something, not just for posting social media videos, because they've been doing that anyway, using cell phone towers, but they didn't want to be on the cell phone towers for whatever they're doing out there. They needed Starlink. So that tells me that whatever they're doing, they don't want somebody looking at it. And here's Colin Big Bear, one of the protesters out there, with an update today talking about how yesterday they had a sort of a false alarm because their scouts reported that they had a parade of maybe government or police vehicles or CFIA vehicles heading out to the farm. So it was all hands on deck, battle stations, everyone. And they had commotion there yesterday in the morning.
Well, hello, ladies and gentlemen. Colin Big Bear Ross here, June 4th at the Universal Ostrich, hanging out with my buddies like always. Just giving you guys an update. Yesterday we had a little bit of a, red flag come about. We thought the CFIA was coming in, but it was a false alarm. So it helped everybody learn a lot by mobilizing and getting ready if they come. Also, I'm going to be leaving the farm. I have a lot to do with my personal life. So I most likely won't be back for a while, but I know there's lots of support here and all over the country, and people are coming in waves. So I know it will be supported no matter what, even if I step away. So I just want to send you guys all the love in the world. Thank you for all the support through the journey. Me and Standing Bear are going to head to the States next weekend. We've been asked to speak down there with Bev as well. So we're going to start going around and doing some healing circles with the people. So if that's the mission we're supposed to be on, that's the mission we're supposed to be on. So be it. All right. Much love. Till the next time.
So there, he's going to the States to do healing circles. Sounds like he's on tour to build support or recruit or something down on the U.S. side of the border for whatever it is they have planned up there at this farm.
And I mean, again, I analysed these statements and what came out from a police perspective and a security perspective. When I gave speeches at the ledge, my focus was making sure we had people at the ledge that would keep people safe. I worked with the sheriffs to say, you know, we're going to be here. If you're going to do anything, I need to know about it. I'll ask people to leave. You won't need to get involved. Safety is primary. When the CFIA do turn up, they have a response plan that they're mobilizing. These are sort of military type talk. Whether they're doing that or not, I have no idea. But this is what they're telegraphing to people. From the police's perspective and CFIA's perspective, they again have to take that seriously. So now they're going to be coming in with a very, very different approach than they've done in any other farm. They're treating this as a hostile environment, and they can say, "Oh no, we don't have weapons, and we're all going to be nice, and we're all going to hug." But you are unable. You can protest all you want, but when these agents come on to do their job, you have to get out the way. If you even slow them down by having your car parked in the way, that's an arrestable offence. You will be dragged off, and so what are you going to do? Are you going to blockade the road? In which case you're committing offences, and you're going to. So you are not looking for a peaceful protest. The only thing you can mobilise is the interference with judicially approved processes, which are criminal offences. That doesn't sound like peaceful protesters. And Karen says, and Katie says, people should have their due process, and people should be able to. You've been through the courts. You lost.
Yeah.
I mean, you've had longer with these birds than any other farmer has.
Like almost 6 months.
And the reality is, during the time since the original cull order was made, birds have died.
Yeah.
It's not like you can say, we've got a completely healthy flock. And we know that they say two died recently. I don't know. I know one of them definitely didn't die from a shot to the head. How many more have actually died? I mean, was that one that was shot to the head? Did that only come to the forefront because it was seen? I mean, if they're dropping dead in the bushes, nobody's seeing them. What are they doing? I don't know. I haven't seen a head count. You know what, Katie? If you want to do a video walking round. Get your mum, because apparently she knows all the names. Go round and name all the ostriches one by one. Do a live stream and show them one by one, and with a little counter on the screen showing us exactly how many birds you've got. That'll answer one question. It still will leave an awful lot of. And please, if you are going to go in there, make sure you've got all the right gear on, the hazmat gear and everything else, and make sure you have a chemical shower before you leave and go hugging kids. And maybe try and adhere to the 155 days of quarantine that you haven't even come close to adhering to. And maybe in Parliament, the MLAs, I don't know what they're called in BC. They're called MLAs here in Alberta.
MLAs, members.
Yeah, so maybe the MLAs that have been shipping out hazardous biological materials in contradiction to the quarantine order would answer some questions in Parliament as to what in the hell are you doing? Didn't you swear an oath to protect the people and as a Parliament member? Doesn't seem like you're doing that for photo opportunities, because that's all they are. Politicians are doing this for no other reason than the photo op of look who I'm supporting. They don't care about the farm. They just care about how many votes are we going to get next year. That's it. So this was a photo op where you're just completely ignoring a quarantine order and taking biological material from the farm, breaching the quarantine order to the Parliament building. I think we should, maybe sanitize the Parliament building. I'd maybe not tell the MPs that you were doing it, but definitely should be sanitized. Again, for me, I wish I could treat this as just a con, just a stupid story, just some social media nonsense nobody cares about. But they keep doubling down on the clear and present danger to the people that are there, the kids that are there, and the families in the local area and beyond, the other farmers. Like, how many other farms? Because, I mean, she talks about, on her LinkedIn profile, it suggests that this is quite the big operation of shipping. You tracked down, and there was I tracked them down, but I hadn't spoken to them. I found the article on it. But we know 6 have moved, but it doesn't sound like this operation out of Alberta was just, shipping 6 ostriches out to one location local to them, 300 kilometers away. It sounds like they were shipping them all over the country. So where are all those other locations?
Yeah.
All these other farmers seem to be very quiet. And that's the other thing. I haven't seen, typically when farmers are under attack, they will go and jump in their tractors and drive down to the local Parliament building. None of them would go to the farm because of the cross-contamination risk that they understand. But they would in support. They are some of the first people to actually jump in their tractors and drive down to the MPs and say, we're not going to stand for this. 14 million birds being culled in this country, and I don't see any protests from the farmers. Why is that? Because they understand that as bad as the stamping out process is, they don't have a better answer. Their only complaint is they don't get compensated by the government enough. And maybe the governments would have a bit more money to compensate them if they weren't playing about with this nonsense in BC.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm pretty sure it's cost more than a few dollars for the governments, for the RCMP, for CFIA, for the lawyers and everything. It's cost the taxpayer an awful lot of money to participate in this circus.
And this is the place where the ostriches were sold in 2021, those 6 ostriches, to a farm out in Whitecroft, 300 kilometers away. In the winter, they run Mountain Man adventure tours. So they have sort of a dual business going out there. In Sun Peaks, BC. Beautiful looking town. And so they do this in the winter with these, I guess, some sort of a tourism thing with sled dogs, dog sleds. And then in the summer, they get involved with farming, which I guess must also be a year-round thing. But they sent the ostriches out there, but then they returned them at some point. And that's about all I can say about that at the moment.
That also is a little bit disturbing. That somebody running a facility with dogs is knowingly bringing another breed, another genus of animal that is part of COVID experiments onto their farm. I mean, I wouldn't want it anywhere near my family. And I definitely wouldn't want it near my dogs. I know to them the dogs are commodities for the business, but the reality is the majority of the people that run these sled tours, they actually do care about their animals. They're usually very well looked after. So it was surprising to me when you said she knew, or he knew. I don't know which one you spoke to, but they knew she knew that these animals were part of experiments. And she brought them onto a location where she had her sled dogs. And again, we're talking about zoonotic viruses. We're talking about viruses that the only real risk is the fact that they can jump species. That's where the risk is. And when they do that, they mutate significantly. Now, luckily, throughout history, that there haven't been that many of them that we've identified, but there's been enough. I think in some cases, there's overreactions and there's assumptions made, and sometimes the narrative's been weaponized. But the reality is that it is something that happens. And I mean, there's going to be a lot of people on your stream saying viruses don't exist. Viruses don't exist. Well, funny, go and have a look at the Injection of Truth event in 2024 in Alberta, where one of your heroes that's currently supporting the farm and their research, Dr. David Speecher, a very respected researcher, with the Freedom Movement event sponsored by the UCP government. But
oh, we're losing you there, David. Your internet, or somebody's internet, is freezing up just a little bit. Yeah, we lost you there for about 60 seconds. Are you back?
I can see me. I can see you.
Okay, yeah, you were frozen up there for about 30 to 60 seconds.
Okay. Yeah, people should go and just look up David Speecher, Dr. David Speecher, who's one of the heroes of the freedom movement. There's people that they support, who talks about isolating COVID in 2020. He was part of the research team that did that.
Yeah.
So it's like the same people who say the viruses don't exist and are supporting a farm that business relies on viruses existing, are also supporting the guy that went to the freedom movement event saying, I isolated it. I mean, you've got Pat King and all those people saying it's never been isolated. Okay, you know what? I don't care whether it has or not. I just care whether it's deadly, and I care whether people are telling us the truth and lying or not. That's what I care about. But when you start getting into discussions of things don't exist, does it matter? I mean, if you're saying that, why are you supporting the farm? Because you're pretty much destroying their business model, because their business model relies on infectious diseases. That's what it. Without that, they have no business model for the last 5.5 years.
This is Katie today, her most recent post.
Good morning, everybody. It's Katie from Universal Ostrich. I hope you are having a wonderful morning. Definitely a calmer morning here than yesterday morning. I want to address something, and this is all new to us, obviously, and we wish that we were not in this situation at all. But there's a lot of people saying that yesterday was the false alarm, and it was like seeking attention, and this is what the world is watching, that at any moment, this is our life, at any moment, any day, they say that they will come and they will kill the ostriches. We are so blessed enough to have people that are watching everywhere and giving us these tips, and we've been very fortunate that those tips have not been a lot of false alarms. But unless you're here and you realize that we're 135 kilometers away from a city, and we are in the middle of nowhere, that those tips are everything to us. So when we know that, when we hear that there's an army of white vehicles coming our way, I feel like it's our duty for all of you that have been so gracious and so invested in wanting to see the change happen that we're fighting for, to let you know, especially when we're in panic, that this might be happening in this moment, that this is what's happening. And because if they are coming in with brunt force to kill all of these animals, we want the attention of all of you to be watching, because that is not going to happen without everybody watching. I've said that from day one, that if this is happening and we can't stop it, then the world needs to see what's going to happen here. So I'm sorry if anybody sees it as that we're looking for attention. If we could take the attention off the farm and everything would be okay and the world could be a better place and the stamping out policy could be dealt with, please, any day, please sign me up. It's been a long 5 months. We all know that. I don't ever want to sound repetitious, and I don't ever want to sound like that we are coming across as, and these are just opinions, right? But all opinions matter, and I want to address these things seriously because we are genuinely invested in such a big thing here to trying to save almost 400 souls from being needlessly slaughtered. This is, as we know, is being met with nothing but resistance, and we're not allowed to test, threatened 6 months in jail if we test our animals. So I just want, yeah, you're always going to get an update from me. If there's something that we feel like is actually something that is coming towards the farm that we don't know exactly what to expect, I'm going to let you know, but I'm also going to let you know if it's a false alarm. And yesterday we're so blessed that it ended up being a false alarm of this convoy of white vans and vehicles. But today there could be another. There could be somebody else that sees something and sends a picture, and that has become our life. It's being on high alert 24 hours a day while we plow through the legal process, trying to protect ourselves, our rights, the animals, and try to change the policy around the world, the stamping out policy, and protect natural immunity. So I just want to clarify that again. I am going to always let you know because I feel like a lot of you are just as invested as we are and want to see the change and protect these animals. So if we have something solid that we have a fear of, and I really want to make sure that everybody is ready to watch just in case something happens, I'm going to let you know. But I'm also going to let you know if everything's okay. So I encourage people to come visit us here, 301 Langill Road. We need people, and we need traffic, and we need people coming in and seeing these big, beautiful prehistoric birds. We need to keep up the visits, and just I think the presence on the property is very, very important. We've had some amazing days with amazing people, meeting amazing people from all around Canada. We're, I think, like 100 and we're almost 140 days, absolutely healthy, big, beautiful animals. So we're fighting hard. We have a series that is going to start to come out online. It's going to be in response to that media release that Canadian Food Inspection Agency did on last Friday, and that is going to address the lies and misinformation, in our opinion, that they have tried to mislead the public with. So expect those. Just got them. We wanted to make sure, again, everything was completely backed up by facts, completely honest, and had the most material to substantiate our response to theirs. So please stay focused or watch, not focused, but watch for that. And again, if something's happening here, I feel like so many people are watching and the world is watching, that you're going to be the first to know if something feels like it's really real. We're going to let you know because we need eyes that day. We need eyes that moment. And then I'm also going to let you know if everything's okay. So just, anyways, I love all of you. Please understand that unless you are here and you know our situation and how far away we are in the middle of nowhere, that those communications are so important for us because we have that little bit of time to defend what we're all fighting for. So I love all of you. Have an amazing morning, and I will update you a little bit later with some of these lies and misinformation that Canadian Food Inspection Agency has released, and we'll let you know our response. So lots of love this morning. Thanks for listening, and thank you for your love, your support, your prayers, your cares, your messages, thank you for everything, and we just love you very much. Bye-bye.
These 500 trucks, the convoy, where's the pictures? It's a bit like the drone. The only picture we've seen of a drone that, Jim Kerr with the camera, the GoPro on his head, They've flown over 5 nights now, and did you not get a picture? Did you not remember you've got a camera on your head? I mean, like, not a single picture in this day and age. I mean,
I
it
saw
almost
a
looked like
picture of some lights or something.
yeah. So that if you
black
actually look
background,
at if you look at the lights and the size of
I
it,
don't know what it
they
was.
actually have some DJ. I'm assuming DJI sort of home drones there, which have those lights on them. So
Yeah.
that's easy to stage.
Yeah.
It certainly that's not what the border drones look like. That's not what the RCMP drones look like. And again, so these 500 vehicles or whatever, however many trucks, because there's a few other statements that have been made during the day by different people at the farm. They were black SUVs, then there were white vans, and then there weren't any vehicles. It was a false alarm. So which was it? It's a bit like the ostriches. We don't really know, but one thing we don't have is photographs. Everybody's got a cell phone. I mean, they're quite good at doing these live streams every day, all day, but nobody gets a picture of the convoy of white vehicles that were heading towards the farm. And again, if they were coming, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? You've got children there, and what are you going to drag the bouncy castles and have the children in the middle of the road? Because I'm sorry, but there is nothing you can do, and you're not protected. The stamping out policy is currently in effect because of the avian flu. The reality is, if you're a research facility, it isn't really the CFIA that should be dealing with this. They're dealing with it because they're not really acknowledging the research facility. Now, is that because the CFIA know that this is just a pack of lies? In which case, it is the most sophisticated backstory I've ever seen set up. But if that's the case, then maybe the CFIA needs to come out with a statement and say, no, there's nothing. Or maybe their lawyer, Lee Turner, can say, listen, that statement that's been made, that they say they have all these documents and all these emails, because the timing of that email, Lee Turner would have had to have a copy of it. They're not your clients anymore. Get them to waive privilege and confirm that email is true. As a lawyer, you can do that. Just contact Katie, say to her, can you just waive privilege, and I will confirm that letter is true. Or even Stephen Pelik. I'm assuming as an expert witness, you would have had access to the file, and you would have seen that letter, that email. So just come out. Either tell us, are you a research facility, in which case everybody needs to be worried, or is it scam, in which case it's a stamping out issue that the CFIA should have already been dealt with. I don't know which it is, but either way, this is not a good situation and not a place for children.
And I have a photo of that bird, the dead bird, just viewer discretion. If this kind of thing bothers you, I'm going to show this on the screen again. And David, you can give your assessment of whether you think this thing was shot from a drone.
So there's actually a wider look. That slice on the side of its neck is not an exit wound. The amount of blood that's there, that's not a spray from a wound, which you would get if it was hit with a bullet. There's another picture at the top, which is just a little square patch of skin. There's not really looking like a big hole. But this down the side of it, that's not an exit wound from any sort of caliber of weapon, and certainly not from an airborne drone. And look at the size of the head compared to the neck. This would have to have been the farm is surrounded by people. The picture that we're looking at here is in the middle of the field. I actually described it as the grassy knoll. It's like on its own in the middle of a field. So the distance would have been a distance shot. Any ballistics that was capable of getting that distance, going through the head, through all the tissue, and then not just coming out of the neck as a single exit wound, but slicing a clean, almost knife slice all the way down the side of that neck. That you're talking about a very fast-moving bullet. That head wouldn't have remained intact. Again, I don't want to go into the graphics of it, but that's not what it would have looked at like. And the amount of blood next to it, that's the leaking of a bird that's been effectively mutilated after death. And it's sad, and it is very disturbing that Rebel News would put this up and would push this as if it was a drone that shot it, and push that narrative. And even it was shot in the ear, but the picture is a hole in the top of its head. Were they referring to the ear to get the sympathy and trigger people over Donald Trump's magic bullet when he was clipped in the ear? Or is it to engender, the fact that it was shot at these two birds were shot in the head? Is this to trigger RFK and what happened to his uncle? I mean, you look at we talked the other day about how to influence people with the manipulation of words, the social engineering. This is how you do it. Is you actually give them a story that they can associate with something else, and it makes it more believable. But the reality is that bird wasn't shot. I mean, it may have been shot as well, but those wounds that we see, that wasn't a bird that was shot in the middle of the night. And if it was, if they even tried to suggest it was, the Canadian government or the US military need to hire that person and have him train all their snipers. Because if you're in the middle of the night being able to shoot a moving ostrich in the head from the top down and make such a clean shot into it, then you know what? You need to be running our military sniper program, because that is literally. But again, it wouldn't look like that. It is very sad, and it's.
Yeah, I
but
mean,
it's one of those things.
Look
People
at the
believe it.
length of that slit.
And it
That's
actually goes
not-
down quite a bit further than that.
Yeah, it's just.
That's not how bullets come out of the body. That just doesn't. And if they do, if they actually, what we call tumble, as they're coming out on an exit wound, then you get a very, very ragged tear. You don't get what effectively looks like a blade. It's not that clean, and it also the skin folds in, not out.
Mm-hmm.
That's not an exit wound. That's somebody pushing from the outside onto the skin.
Yeah.
And that means that the RCMP should be looking at somebody on site, or somebody who got on site and mutilated a bird. And the sad thing is, this, again, CFIA won't care, because they've got a cull order to kill all the birds. If somebody's gone in and killed a bird, that's not that area. That's the RCMP. So they won't investigate it. And the RCMP will be going, we don't have the resources, we don't have the manpower, and all these birds are going to be culled anyway. What is our chances of finding the culprits are slim to none. So they're not going to put any effort into it. But it makes a good story to keep people engrossed in the poor animal that got. And it's a poor animal that is now dead, that probably shouldn't have been dead. But this cull order and everything else that's gone on, you know what? I can blame the government for a lot of things, but I'm struggling to find blame outside of the farm for what's currently happening at the farm. They signed up voluntarily for financial benefit to actually, because if you go read their court documents, nothing in it is about the health and safety of the birds. It's about their monetary value as research animals. And again, anybody running that level of research knows that the lab animals at the end of the research are destroyed. That is just what, because you can't have them running around in society and potentially infecting other animals with zoonotic viruses. And the fact that they're using the same birds to inject with multiple pathogens. And as I say, Dr. Sakamoto, one of the first viruses he was experimenting on ostriches with was H5N1, which is, and these birds have got this unique strain that's been seen nowhere else, despite 8.7 million birds being culled, and certainly not 8.7 million tested, but a number of them have been tested. and none of them have tested for the same strain that it seems to be unique. They're saying is unique to the farm, but it has. I've read that it's been seen in one other location in Ohio. So I saw that same story, but I don't know whether it is or not. They're saying we have this unique strain, and we've only us have got it. So where did it come from? What again? Occam's razor. Is it more likely that an experimental? I mean, again, this is like Wuhan saying, "Well, yeah, we would experiment with coronaviruses, and all our bats we were injecting them with coronaviruses, but a duck wandered in one day and it gave all our bats coronavirus. But it's okay. We shooed the duck away, and everything's fine now." But it had nothing to do with the research we're doing. Absolutely nothing to do with the research we're doing. CFIA doesn't care because, again, it's out of their pay grade to even ask those questions. They have a mandate, and sadly, because of what's going on right now, it's a busy mandate. And I have to say, I don't agree with it, but I don't have a better solution. And from the responses of farmers, i.e. the lack of response of farmers, to these cullings that have been going on for decades, I don't think the farmers have got a better answer either. Because if they did, they'd be protesting about it. The only times the farmers speak up about it is complaining that they're not getting enough money to compensate them for the loss. That's their complaint. Their complaint isn't that their birds should be saved. Their complaint is they don't get compensated properly. That is where, because otherwise, where are the protests by the farmers who have lost millions of birds? Why aren't they at the BC government speaking to their MPs? Why aren't the MPs at other farms who've just had their birds culled supporting this ostrich farm? Because surely, if that's their common goal, there must be some farmer out there that sympathizes with them and wants to help them save his flock from the next go round. I've seen a lot of social influencers. I've seen a lot of ex-convoy people from the Ottawa convoy. I've seen a lot of so-called media people, but I haven't seen a huge outcry from chicken or ostrich, or all the other ostrich farmers, all the ostrich farmers that they've sold ostriches to through this enterprise since 2021 with their 5-year contracts of we'll buy your birds back. Because surely, if this turns out to be an unlawful research facility, they're on the hook for this. And if somebody digs further and says, when did these birds get infected, and have you shipped any birds out? Oh, well, yeah, here's another 20 farms across Canada that have got our birds. Then CFIA or Health Canada is going to be wandering over to them. Where are they standing for their rights to continue their businesses? Silence. I mean, all we've got is people. We've got the village who are upset because they've been sold meat and cosmetics and eggs that they're now worried may have been contaminated with something. And we've got a couple of people, a few people like us asking questions. And then the rest of the people have got nothing to do with the poultry industry or they're just there promoting not even half the story. It's a tiny, tiny portion of the facts that are literally like every single one that's there has got one of these. Just do a search, pull up the court file, pull up Karen Esperson's LinkedIn profile and read what it says about Struthio and what their business model was. It's like it's a willful ignorance at this point of the facts. And when you get that level of willful ignorance, again, we get to Fred Clark's law that says there comes a point in time you cannot continue to be that ignorant without it being malicious. And certainly the social influencers that are pushing a narrative, and they can say, I didn't tell people to go down to the farm. Yeah, but you put the person on and interviewed the person who's telling everybody, giving out the address of where to come on a daily basis.
And I can just tell you for sure that some of them have been encouraging people to come down and giving out the address themselves.
Yep.
Multiple times. Yes, they have.
Yeah. And it's despicable. And I would expect if this turns out to be a biohazard, and we take Karen and Dave and Katie and Steve Pelik to their word, to what they filed into court, to what they've vocalized, to what they've put in their LinkedIn business profiles, if we take them at those words, anybody who has promoted taking children in particular to that farm should be prosecuted. That's my personal opinion as a retired police officer. I would be asking my colleagues in uniform why you're not prosecuting people who were willfully endangering people, if that's what it turns out to be. If they know something on the farm that it's a con, then I expect you to be prosecuted for being part of a fraud, to defraud people of their hard-earned money. Either way, I'm not seeing a positive spin on any of these people that are not doing even the most basic Google search.
Just one last thing here. I'm going to put up on the screen. This is Shadow Davis. Yesterday, he was there participating in the request for someone to donate Starlink equipment. And here he is today with this update. Here we go.
Well, hello, everybody. We're live from the Ostrich Farm, 5 o'clock Pacific. And Katie and I did a live video a couple of hours ago asking if anybody knew how we could gain access to Starlink, how we can get the apparatus for it. And I just want to thank all of you. I can't even count all of the messages that I received and that Katie received. I don't know. But I haven't gotten back to all of you yet. I will at some point soon. We have got access to Starlink, which is very important for what may be coming up tonight. You might recall from a previous video that I did today, and I think Jim Kerr was doing also, and then Katie herself, that we had a bit of a scare this morning. We got a report.
This was actually, yes, this is his most recent post, though.
What appeared to be a convoy of vehicles heading our way here, and at that point, naturally, people assumed that it was CFIA or the agents that they've hired to cull the ostriches, and no convoy showed up. We've got people hanging out with their eyes open everywhere. So we should get a good report if something like that does happen. We feel like maybe it could happen tonight, that maybe that report was not erroneous, that maybe there's a staging area somewhere within an hour or two of the farm, and they may be just deciding to come in at the night. So to gain access to Starlink was important so that we can bring to you instantaneously what may happen. And again, we don't know for sure if it's going to happen tonight or tomorrow night, but we are ready for them to come. So in the meantime,
and again, they don't need Starlink to feed out video because they've been doing it. He's doing it right here without Starlink. They're using cell phone towers, but they wanted Starlink for something related to all of this.
Legal motions have been filed to stop this from happening, and we'll keep you updated as we get more information about what is going on. But in the meantime, what we've got going on here right now, still a great community of people who have banded together to support Katie and Karen and Universal Ostrich Farm. You guys all know why we're here at this stage of the game. There's so many things wrapped up in in what may happen here, that we are ready to dig our heels in and stay till the end, whatever the end happens to be. So I want to thank you very much for your support. And I want to thank you very much for sharing this news. This news is not just for truth seekers, freedom-minded people, common sense people, as I call us all now. This is everybody. Everybody is watching what's going on here. Katie has done interviews. I've been here, I think, 3 days now, and Katie has done interviews on all of the left-wing corporate media. And believe it or not, all of the left-wing corporate media seems sympathetic to what's going on here. We ask the hard questions. They have been able, Universal Ostrich Farms have responded with the information that's required. So not just required, but the truthful information, documentation, everything that refutes what you may have heard this place is about. There are some other outlets who are, as far as I'm concerned, making things up, extrapolating things that aren't real. And I don't know what the motivation is. Maybe it's division, maybe it's disinformation sources, maybe it's to stop the momentum of the support for this place. I don't know. But what I can tell you is that I have seen nothing but community here and love and resolve. And I wish you could be here. I wish you could be here. And so I'm trying to bring you everything that I'm getting from having been here for the past few days so that you can feel it as well. I know of some stuff that's going on investigation-wise. And, well, I can't reveal any of that stuff right now. I want you to know that it's all good news. And that we're looking for a very positive outcome from all of this. But again, some things are out of our control. So your support is incredibly important. And if there's a way you can find to come out here and join the community, and no, it's not a cult. So it's a cult, it's a cult. No, it's not a cult. It's a community of people who are banding together against government overreach and a big pharma. You guys know all the reasons, but it is one of the most genuine, loving, caring communities that I've ever had the privilege of ever being involved in. So if you have the opportunity, if you're in the area, or if you feel like a road trip, you know, I mean, check out a map and see how far away you are from Universal Ostrich Farm. And if you feel like you can, if you've got the means and the time, come on out. Come say hi. That would be very much appreciated. In the meantime, while I'm here, I will do my best to keep you informed. And Jim Kerr as well, please follow Jim on Facebook. He does regular updates as well. And Katie Pisitny as well. Please follow her in case you're not, so that you can get all of the information. Now, many of you guys, including the All Access Nighthawks, have been asking, hey, where's the show this week? Well, no, there's not going to be a regular show this week based upon the fact that I'm here at Universal Ostrich Farms. They don't have access to my studio back home. So in lieu of that, what I'm doing is keeping you updated on all of this stuff. I also was on Anita Krishna's show last night, and she put that up on YouTube, which I shared here on the Facebook page. So if you want to see a semi-Shadow at Night show, you can watch that one. We did talk about the Ostrich Farm, as well as what Daniel Smith said yesterday regarding Alberta independence and pipelines and national unity, which I think is another very important story that's going on right now in our country. And I'll get back to regular, guys, probably early next week. But in the meantime, I'll be here at Universal Ostrich Farms. What I'm doing the next couple of days is taking a trip down to Abbotsford to see my son, to visit him for a few days. That will be the coolest, and then I'll be back here at Universal Ostrich Farms by the weekend, and then starting the trip back to Manitoba probably by early next week. And I haven't set a timeline yet, so I won't be able to give any details, but I will along the way.
Enough. So
there we go with that Alberta sovereignty connection again, and Danielle Smith.
And you heard him. I mean, he's sitting there encouraging people to come out.
Yep, absolutely.
So
again, anybody who's professing to be media or social media influencer who is not actually giving people, we've talked for 5.5 years about informed consent. People who go to that farm, people who donate to that farm should be receiving informed consent. They should be fully informed of exactly what's going on. They should not be conned. They should not be manipulated. They should not be coerced. They need the truth. And yet, at the end of the day, they can make their own decision. If you want to go out there, then that's your decision. I would strongly, particularly, I would say, please do not take children there. And if you are going to go out there, do me a favor, stay there till this is over. Don't leave. If you're committed, stay there till it's over. And Katie, when it comes down to if we get to that point in time, I hope whoever runs the stream, if you actually want to sit there and video your pets being euthanized one by one, and you think that's a good thing to do, then you don't care about those animals. Again, did you video them when you were sending them off for slaughter? Because I'm pretty sure you've run ostrich operations that purely survived on the deaths of these animals for 40 years. Well, since 1991, Karen says in her bio.
Yep.
That has been literally your whole business since 1991 has been on the execution of your pets. And you've had no problem with that, and you haven't been videoing that for the last 40 years. So why now?
Yep.
It's not because you care about them. Because at the end of the day, if 2020 hadn't happened and you hadn't seen a business opportunity to go into research, you'd still be killing these animals for food. And apparently, by your own Facebook posts, Katie, you still were, even while you were in a research lab. That's even more disturbing. But as you know, we both have border collies. I'm pretty sure, they're smart enough dogs. They're smart enough to know you don't experiment on them, let alone the people. Like you don't experiment on your pets. Like again, she's saying, well, we were doing it for humanity, and they've got such robust immune systems. 69 of them died in January. You can't. She can't say to me, no, I knew when I injected them with COVID, they'd be fine. They'd be fine. She had no idea what she was doing. Because nobody had any idea what that was going to do, injecting them with that in 2020. But you were quite happy to do that for the monetary benefit. That's not somebody who cares about their animals. Sadly, researchers who work in that field can't. They have to detach themselves from the animals because effectively they know that by turning them into lab animals, they are sentencing them to death and potentially some suffering through the very process of experimenting on them. Mm-hmm. And yet we've got people there defending their right to continue this because she's still talking about all the other things they don't have products for yet. Well, you're only getting that if you're going to continue the research. Yeah.
Well, is there anything else you'd like to add tonight as a final thought, David?
No, at some point we should probably do a show about something that is actually more important, but that hopefully is more important anyway, and chat about some things. It's been being on your show. Thanks for having me, and thanks for having me the other day. I'm really glad we connected. I'm glad you're out there actually looking for the truth and doing what a real journalist should do. Just ask the truth.
Well, thank you for digging and exposing so much of this information. And again, just let people know where they can find your posts online and your other information.
So I'm DKS Data on Twitter. On my LinkedIn profile, I'm David Dixon. You'll find me there and all my contact. My website is dksdata.com. And if you're looking for COVID-19 stuff, there's a link and a whole set of pages for that. If you're just looking for, just be aware, my business is IT, compliance, security. I'm busy at the moment, so I'm not looking for business. I'm actually looking for a bit of a rest at the moment, if I can. But my primary focus typically is, although I'm spending a lot of time on this, my primary focus is what's going on in care homes and the suffering that's happening, and trying to fix things that have been happening and continue to happen since 2020. Because if people understood what was going on and the things they complained about were happening to them, it's still happening in care homes to this day without any good cause, and it's wrong. And I hope one day soon somebody will actually sort this ostrich thing out, put it to bed once and for all, and we can actually focus on, stopping World War III and saving grandma.
And speaking of World War III, I still have more to share with you guys tonight. I need to touch on the Ukraine war on the other side of this transition that I'm about to run. And David, thank you so much again. And we look forward to having you back on the program, because this story is not over yet. So
I know that. That's what worries me.
All right. I'll be right back.
Rick. I'll keep on watching because it's good. It's good to watch.
Okay.
Thanks, Rick.
All right. Thank you, sir. And I'll be right back with more after this.
Maverick News. Fighting for freedom.
Okay, I am back, and I do want to show you the most recent information tonight on that massive drone attack inside Russian territory by Ukraine a couple of days ago now, because there is new satellite footage that has been released verifying, confirming the level of damage. And it also highlights the spin that is being put on this story by various sides. And I think it's important to show you this because it seems like everything tonight involves some sort of spin or narrative. Now, this is not so much about spin as it is verifying truth and verifying the claims made by Ukraine that they destroyed somewhere between 30 and maybe even 40 Russian aircraft, affecting their bomber fleet. And these are new satellite aerial photos from satellites captured by private companies that then provide these images to military through contracts and other parties who pay for the information. So as you can see, this is published on TWZ And this is a military publication, I believe, sent to me so that I can show you exactly what I'm showing you. Verification. And these are also making the rounds on social media. So we showed you some of this stuff, additional footage from the drones. And as you can see here, again, that's the drone strike. Video cutting out at the moment of impact. Let's turn the audio down. So, you know, this is part of the information war. It's not just, and again, there more confirmation. We showed you that video the other day. Was it yesterday? I'm losing track of the days. I believe it was. Yes, it was yesterday. So we showed you this yesterday. And again, video cutting out right at the moment of impact with these aircraft. Scroll down. More footage. We showed you this video as well. The drones coming in. As you know, they were released from inside transport truck trailers attached to transport trucks. And these are aerial photos, again, from the satellites taken after the fact. More confirmation. And you can see here, this is a good one, a wider shot at this airfield. And you can see destruction, the debris, 1, 2, 3, 4. I don't think they hit that one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, at least 6, 7. Hard for me to tell on the computer here, but you have multiple hits there. A close-up shows 2 destroyed Tu-22M3 aircraft at Balea. This is from Maxar Technologies. This one here says another destroyed Tu-22M3. Another one. Additional satellite images. So this is confirmation, so that you know, it's not like they're just making these claims and then not backing them up. They're bringing you the receipts. I've also found some social media posts where they've taken those satellite photos and overlaid them with previous satellite photos prior to the attack. In fact, here it is here. I've got it so that you can see the before and after. And this is significant, not just because of the amount of destruction, which is estimated in the billions and billions of dollars to Russia, but also because of the ingenuity, the creative aspects of it. Some military analysts and commentators saying that this is the most significant military operation since the exploding pagers mission that Israel launched. Was that about, how long ago was that now? Was that about a year ago? Which was very unique, targeting specifically Hamas. Here you go. Bring this up and you can see how they have overlaid the before and the after. Now, while that confirmation is coming through, prior to that, we've seen social media influencers, excuse me, like this, spinning the opposite narrative. The pro-Russian influencers are trying to downplay all of this and make people believe that there's minimal, if any, damage. Posts are out there saying that only old aircraft used for parts were hit and that there's no significant damage at all. And then here's Judge Napolitano with Colonel McGregor, both of whom are clearly pro-Russian influencers. And just listen to what they say. And then you tell me, based on the pictures, you can decide for yourself who's telling the truth and who's engaged in narrative, spin, or outright propaganda.
How significant from a military perspective, Colonel, how significant was this attack? We're hearing stories that it was 40 to 50 planes that were destroyed, and we're hearing stories that it was 4 to 7 planes that were destroyed.
I think
you know which side the 4 to 7 planes stories are coming from, and that's why they're injecting this into the narrative, obviously, because they're trying to create an alternate reality here.
I think for the most part, it was a PR stunt to try and convey the impression that Ukraine is capable of carrying on the war, has great fight left in it, and is capable ultimately of harming Russia. I don't think the harm was very great. I think it's grossly exaggerated in the West. Anything you hear from the Western outlets, BBC, or any of the mainstream in the United States are probably untrue, or at least grossly exaggerated. Mm-hmm. What I think is true is that we damaged ourselves and our relationship, what there is left of it, with Moscow by attacking limitation agreements. And I think the Russians have reached a point now where collectively they all say we can't be trusted. Whatever we say is irrelevant because it's probably untrue.
Okay. Russia invaded Ukraine. Ukraine is at war with Russia because Russia invaded Ukraine. Therefore, Ukraine has the right to defend itself, and that includes launching attacks inside Russia. And this was done independent of other countries, independent of the United States. We know that that drone attack was 18 months in the planning, and Ukraine has every right to hit those military targets, military aircraft that they use to launch missiles at Ukraine. They didn't use long-range missiles provided by another country. They used drones, and those drones are not, the use of those drones is not restricted by any other country because they've been producing them inside Ukraine. But the spin just continues. Frankly, it's getting a little rich. It got a little rich a long time ago. You can make up your own mind, but I'm just giving you the information. I don't like lies. I really am averse to lies. And the satellite photos don't lie. Those are very real. You can say, I believe the truth is, if you want to, as Colonel McGregor just did, but what you believe and what truth is, sometimes that's not the same thing. What you believe might be an opinion or a perception, but the satellite photos do not align with what we just heard, in my view. In my opinion, you can have your own. Now, I know also that Donald Trump had a conversation with Vladimir Putin today, and he indicated in that conversation that Putin told him that Russia will be retaliating. Now, if there wasn't much damage, if there wasn't much of an attack from Ukraine, as we just heard from Colonel McGregor, then why does Vladimir Putin even care? Why would he be saying what he's saying here? Let me just bring this over, share this with you. So here he is. He's saying that Ukraine is no longer just an illegitimate regime, and these are Putin's words, but is now acting as a full-fledged terrorist organization. So you see, if Ukraine fights back, in the view of Mr. Putin, that makes Ukraine terrorists. So it's okay for them to invade and attack Ukraine, but if Ukraine fights back at all, that's a terrorist attack. When in reality, under international law, if you are at war, if you have been attacked, then you have every right to strike into the territory of your adversary, the country that is attacking you, and to hit military targets, military assets that are being used to attack you. And that is exactly what they've done here. And they did not need the permission of any other nation to use the weapons, these drones that they used. Here's Putin today.
It was a deliberate strike, and it only confirms our suspicions that the illegitimate regime in Kiev that came to power through a coup is now being reborn as a terrorist organization, and its sponsors become supporters of terrorism. Recently, the Ukrainian government and their allies dreamt of inflicting a strategic defeat on Russia on the battlefield. Now they're withdrawing from the battle zone, fleeing, and now the Kiev regime is trying to resort to terrorist attacks. At the same time, they're asking for a ceasefire. They're asking for top-level meetings. But how can we organize such meetings when something like this is happening? What is there to talk about? How can we negotiate with those who are resorting to terrorism? And why should we reward them with a cessation in hostilities, allowing them to receive additional weapons to continue their mobilization and to prepare for more terrorist attacks like those in the Bryansk and Kursk regions?
Well, if he had accepted the unconditional ceasefire that was on the table even just days ago, none of this would have happened. And that's just a fact. But that hasn't happened. So no ceasefire there. And as I say, Trump said he had a long conversation with Putin. He said it was a good conversation, which is fairly typical of the kind of thing that Trump would say, but not a conversation, he says, that will lead to immediate peace. Let me bring up the clip. This is Fox News. Kayleigh McEnany, his former press secretary, Trump's, with this tonight.
Well, we have some breaking news. President Trump announcing he has just spoken with Russian President Vladimir Putin. He wrote this on Truth Social. I just finished speaking by telephone with President Vladimir Putin of Russia. The call lasted approximately 1 hour and 15 minutes. We discussed the attack on Russia's docked airplanes by Ukraine and also various other attacks that have been taking place by both sides. It was a good conversation, but not a conversation that will lead to immediate peace. President Putin did say, and very strongly, that he will have to respond to the recent attack on the airfields. Those were those Ukrainian attacks on the airfields with the drones. We also discussed Iran and the fact that time is running out on Iran's decision pertaining to nuclear weapons, which must be made quickly. I stated to President Putin that Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon And on this, I believe that we were in agreement. President Putin suggested that he will participate in the discussions with Iran and that he could perhaps be helpful in getting this brought to a rapid conclusion. It is my opinion, the president continued, that Iran has been slow walking their decision on this very important matter, and we will need a definitive answer in a very short period of time. A few interesting notes here. First, just yesterday in Istanbul, you had the Ukrainian side meet with the Russian side, and they were talking about swapping injured soldiers, but they admitted there is no immediate end of peace in sight, an immediate ceasefire. Not only that, we know that Russia is a close ally of Iran. They partner together strategically, militarily. So any assistance on that front could push Iran perhaps into an agreement. So two interesting notes there. And Ari, this all comes against the backdrop of President Trump saying, I'll know in 2 weeks whether Putin is serious. And he said that about a week and a half ago. So this development coming as he's really prodding Putin to push towards peace.
Yeah, and it doesn't sound like there's going to be any prospect of peace between Ukraine and Russia. If there were, if the president had any inclination from President Putin that there was something encouraging, we'd have seen it in that Truth Social. Its absence speaks volumes. Look, I think the only way to get peace between Ukraine and Russia is for Ukraine to continue to bring the war into Russia. That strike against the 40 Russian long-range bombers was instrumental in telling the Russian people and the Russian government there's a cost to you for continuing your attacks in Ukraine. You need a stalemate in order for two parties to come to a peace terms. Right now, there's been an imbalance until this recent Ukrainian attack inside Russia. I don't know if the Ukrainians can sustain it, though. And if you're Russia, you might want to just continue to keep the attacks going because you think you can win. That's why I think this was very risky for President Trump to think he could be the peacemaker. America is strong. President Trump is strong. But we can't do everything around the world. And I think if Russia and Ukraine won't make peace, we can't do it for them.
Kaylee, interestingly, in the middle of that Truth Social, is President Putin did say, and very strongly, that he will have to respond to the recent attack on the airfields. I'm sure that caught the ear of Zelensky.
Absolutely. And I think that one thing to Trump's credit is we have full confidence that both Putin and Iran, all these other countries that he's dealing with, know for a fact that Donald Trump is not messing around. I think what's happening here is Putin is deliberately testing the bounds to see how far he can push Trump, how far he can push this administration before receiving a really harsh rebuke. But Donald Trump is not messing around. And I think that these countries know that, the American people know that, and that's why they elected him to handle our foreign policy.
Yeah, and Laura, this comes against the background of the Hill. The Russia hawks are meeting today. It's a bipartisan group. It's Blumenthal and Graham about potential sanctions on Russia. You know, notably, I always point out President Trump on his watch, you did not see Putin go into sovereign territory. You did see that with his predecessor. You saw that with President Biden. There was an absence 4 years. So there is a respect there that could be leveraged by President Trump.
Yeah, and he's talked about that, too. You know, we didn't see the issue in the Middle East. When Donald Trump was in the White House, we didn't see an issue with Russia, in large part when he was in the White House. I interviewed last week on my show General Keith Kellogg, who is a special envoy to Russia and Ukraine. And when he was talking about the discussions that have been had, that he was privy to between these two countries, he says Ukraine is very clear on what their parameters are, where they are, and what it would take for them to come to a peace agreement. Russia is not. He said they will not actually give us any framework to use. And so I think that's the needle that President Trump is trying to thread. If there's anyone who can thread that needle, if there's anyone, to Kaylee's point, who can tell the rest of the world, I mean business, and they know he means business, it's President Donald J. Trump. And I'm still hopeful that we're going to see peace.
Keith Kellogg is the perfect person to talk to, Emily, because there's the public conversation where President Trump is broadcasting one message. The private conversation with the world leader is very, very different. And sometimes we've seen that spill over in Oval Office, meetings we've covered here. But how he talks to Putin, I know from talking to Kellogg, it's going to be in a tough manner. Kellogg has stories about him picking up the phone, talking to the Taliban, to Baradar, saying, do not harm the head on an American troop. And thereafter, many, many months, not a single American troop was harmed. Those kinds of hard conversations are the hour-and-a-half ones that happen behind the scenes.
Yeah, and I think we've caught glimpses of that in the public eye of exactly who the president is. He's the same off-air as he is on-air. And I think while that may have surprised members of the public, it doesn't surprise those who look at him with respect and value the fact that he is authentically himself in every conversation. I'm grateful that you pointed out the Ukraine point, because I think specifically that Putin apparently talked about sort of a retaliation. And I point that out that Ukraine bombed them because they were the ones that were invaded. This is an oversimplification, but it seems to me that Putin is sort of interested in an eye for an eye at every point of the way because, to your point, Putin sees Ukraine as his territory. Like nothing less than subsuming it back within his borders will suffice because to him, that's a loss. That was a lost territory this entire time. He sees it as not sovereign. So I'm not quite sure if that approach and that perspective that Putin has is something workable on the Ukrainian side, because it's like football penalties. I mean, he's like, oh, I have to get them back for this. Wasn't it enough that you invaded? But clearly it's not. So tough road ahead. I agree that my faith is in our president to get it done if it's possible, but I think we still have a rocky road ahead.
This is also where I question President Trump's ability to influence these events, because President Putin does not care. And we, as Americans, we don't have much leverage over Russia. We're adversaries of Russia for the most part. We don't do a lot of commercial trade with Russia. So we don't have the leverage we have in other places that President Trump can use. So I think this is a lonely mission for President Trump, and he's going to quickly come to the realization Putin's not listening. America doesn't have a lot of leverage. There are other priorities for the United States around this world.
And he also said last week that something is off with Putin. Something is different about Vladimir Putin. So I'm wondering if that's playing into this as well. Maybe it's a different Vladimir Putin than he dealt with the first term in office.
Or it's the same Vladimir Putin who's always been.
And Putin, it's worth noting, I know that all eyes are on Ukraine, but he is constructing on the border of Estonia. They call that the edge of the free world, because that's where you start to get into NATO territory. Does he have designs beyond Ukraine? Let's certainly hope not, but we'll see. More outnumbered in a moment.
Okay, enough of that. I'll be back in a moment.
Maverick News. Fighting for freedom.
Okay, I'm going to try to get a hold of John Rimby for our final wrap-up tonight, because I have something that I really...
Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals. Defenders of individual rights and freedoms. Credible. Trusted. Grounded in reality. Maverick News. Maverick News. Defending free speech. Free speech. Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching. Maverick News. The world is watching.
Well, it looks like he's not going to pick up the line. So I don't know if I want to share this with you guys without John, because this is related to his joke last night. See if he picks up again. I'll call him one more time. I don't think he's going to pick up. Maybe too late. We ran late tonight. That's okay.
You've reached Top Gun.
I don't mean to be so anticlimactic, but I'll tell you what. Since we don't have John, I'll find something else to run for you here, and we'll save this for tomorrow night. It's an evergreen thing. So let me just find you something else. No problem. As we bring the show across the finish line tonight. What do we need here? We got well, you know what we can do. Let's do this. When all else fails, we'll call Dragon. Let's get Dragon on the line to finish up the show tonight. Oh, hang on a sec. There he is. He's right there, I think.
Hey, Rick.
There you are.
I just dumped my conference call. Sorry.
Oh.
I got this stupid new phone, and I'm trying to pick it. What an awesome show, my friend.
Oh, well, thank you for that. And thank you to David Dixon.
He's brilliant.
Yes, he is, isn't he?
Well, he's like you, Rickster.
Yeah, he has a border collie, too. How do you like that? We have another thing in common. We both
Who called you?
No, he has a border collie.
Oh, yeah, that's right. No, he's like you. He's brilliant. He's common sense.
Well, you're brilliant too, Sir John.
No,
because
thank
you're
you. I love what you do, Rick.
Okay.
You and David and that other guy last week. You're the only voice of reason out there, sir.
Well,
with common sense in the world.
Okay, enough of the compliments. It's going to go to my head. My head will swell up too much. Listen, I want you to do us a favor. I
can do you any favor you want, sir.
Okay, we need you, Sir John, to
tell
tell
us.
us.
Go to a Calgary oil office.
No, I need you to tell us the Pierre Polyev joke again, and then I'm gonna share with you the comeback joke that I came up with while I was laying in bed last night, thinking about really important things. Obviously. So go ahead and tell us that joke again.
Rick, are you still on the air?
Oh yes, you're on the air right now.
I didn't know that. I'm sorry.
You're
sir.
live. You're live.
I've been on a conference call in New York with my
okay. Well, now you know, so you have to keep it clean.
Oh, okay. So Rickster, here's the joke. Pierre Polyev, he's our conservative federal leader, right, in the House of Parliament.
Sort of, but he not.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Hey, well, don't get the punch. So Pierre Polyev, so Rickster, Maverick News Nation worldwide, including our U.S. friends. So what's the difference between Pierre Polyev and a toilet?
And I know the answer because you told us the joke last
Rickster,
night. But I'll just say I don't know, John. What is the difference between Pierre Polyev and a toilet?
One more time, Rickster. What's the difference between Pierre Polyev and a toilet?
Well, I don't know, John. I have no idea at all. Tell us,
Rickster,
what's the difference?
Rickster, Maverick News Family Worldwide, a toilet has a seat. A parliamentary seat.
Right.
Not running for one in Alberta, bro.
Right. So,
what's
okay.
your response to that? You laid awake all night?
I did. I was hours,
God,
hours and hours of agonizing thought went into this. And here's the joke, my comeback joke for you tonight, John.
Here's the comeback joke.
Okay.
Is
because
it a good one?
It is. And this is related to a news item today as well, because the NDP, the interim leader of the New Democratic Party, because Jagmeet Singh lost his seat as well, didn't get elected in his riding. So he's gonzo. He's not running in a by-election. He's stepping away. He's not going to be in the House of Commons. So they have an interim leader. And today the interim leader of the NDP said that the NDP will not be they'll be voting against the throne speech. Now. All right.
Well, what's that mean, Rexter?
And this is just in the news vein, okay? That's significant because the Liberals have a minority government, if the throne speech is defeated, if it doesn't pass, that would trigger a vote of confidence and could trigger another election. All right. So So and to pass the throne speech, which is integral to have the confidence of the House so the government can continue, they'll need to bring at least a few other MPs from other parties on board. They'll have to vote in favor of it. Otherwise, it could be defeated. So it's significant. And if the NDP is coming out against it, and they have said today that it's because the throne speech did not address things like healthcare adequately and housing, although they have a very extensive and detailed housing plan on the Liberal side, I must say. But nevertheless, that's all on the table now. But that brings us back to the fact that the King Charles, came, and he's the one who delivered the throne speech, as you know. So here's my joke. First time
Rexter since what, 1950 something?
No, it's 1970 something.
Oh, okay.
Anyway,
okay.
So here's my joke related to all of that.
For your joke, bro.
Here's my big build-up. I hope I don't screw this up because it's been such a big build-up. Here's my joke. Okay. Why did the King go to the restroom?
What's that? Why did the what?
Why did King Charles? I can make it King Charles if you want.
Yeah.
Why did King Charles go to the restroom?
The restroom.
The restroom. Yes, the washroom.
To get another seat?
No.
To sit down.
No, John, because it was time for a royal flush.
What? A royal what?
A royal flush.
That's pretty good, bro. You laid awake all last night.
I did. Hours.
Pretty good.
Hours and hours of fun.
I'm phoning Pierre Polyev tomorrow morning. He's my friend at his constituency office. And I'm going to say, we had a real flush, bro. And Rexter, was King Charles sitting at the casino in Ottawa?
No,
it was just a royal flush.
All right, we have to sign off before the impact of the punchline wears off.
Okay.
All right, John.
Well,
thank you, sir.
That's good.
Appreciate it.
Love you. And again, Rick, thank you.
Okay,
Thank you
John.
so much
Okay,
for what you do, sir.
just say this for me, okay? We'll be back tomorrow night, 7 p.m. Eastern on the
flip side, Ripster. What are you playing for the song tonight? Orange orangutan again. That's a different one.
No, tonight.
You're American. Your muscle card thing.
Tonight. Trump traders.
What?
Trump traders.
Is that a new one, Ripster?
Well, I played it a couple of times, John.
Okay.
You're stealing the thunder of the punchline. Let's try it one more time. We'll be back tomorrow night, 7 p.m. Eastern, on the
flip side.
Didn't pick this fight, but here it came. Now I wanna play in a trader's game. They sell us out for a tax cut deal. Shake his hand while they rob and steal. but they'll cry for Canada when it's too late. Yeah. Trump traitors selling us out, burning our home for a tax break now. They stand with the wolves, spit on the brave, but they'll beg for Canada when it's in its grave. They talk real tough, but they bow real low, licking his boots while they put on a show. They chant his name, raise their fists up high, while the real ones fight to keep us alive. They don't fight fair, they twist the truth, say they're the future, but they kill the roots. They laugh now, but watch them run when the north wind howls and justice comes. Traitors selling us out, burning our home for a tax break now. They stand with the wolves, spit on the brave, but they'll beg for Canada when it's in its grave. One day soon the tide will turn, and traitors pay when the fires burn. No statues raised, no banners flown, just names in dust where the traitors roam. Traitors selling us out, burning our home for a tax break now. They stand with the wolves, spit on the brave, but they'll beg for Canada when it's in its grave. Trump traitors! Trump traitors! Trump traitors! Trump traitors! Trump traitors! Shame.
This has been a Maverick Multimedia production.